Dennis.
Peter, how are you, my friend?
Good, man. Interesting week for me, man. A lot of different little shenanigans going on. Broke a front tooth, so I got a temporary crown on, which is why you see one really white tooth. That's the temporary crown. Had some stitches in the head. Got a melanoma cut off. So, man, it's just been it's been a very interesting week for me.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and we've been up to date, but thanks for sharing that with the viewers and everything. Appreciate that. Sorry to hear. I know you sent me some interesting photos this week, and so glad to see you're on recovery.
Yeah, with altitude. You got the photo with me. Yeah, it looked like white trash from a trailer park.
Yeah,
I would have fit in West Virginia. No offense, any West Virginian listeners. But
I'm regular Virginia, not West Virginia. So have at it. Yeah, have at it. So my kid got married on Sunday here at the house, and so he's a cop in DC for the viewers. So yeah, congratulations, thank you, I appreciate that. It was a great event.
Your property reminds me a little bit of Woodstock, Tommy. It's quite spacious.
Yeah, thanks. This is the Brooklyn kid with who lived on smaller than a postage stamp lot and shared a driveway and shared common walls with many people for many years. All of a sudden, he's out in the countryside and driving a tractor, and his wife thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. The kid from Brooklyn is a good old farmer boy, and I wear plaid shirts and the whole bit. So, we had it out here at the house because we had the space, and the foliage was just starting to break, and everything was really good. So it was good. Anyway, so we are in the tavern. So I'm going to add it to the stage here. In the menu tonight, Pete and our guest, which we'll get into in a minute, Jeff Lewis from Miami-Dade, he's drinking H2O, and so are you, Pete. So I'm drinking alone tonight. And I think George Thorogood had a song on that. I'm not really sure, but yeah.
He drank alone, all by himself.
Yeah. So let's hear it in chat, everybody. What are you guys drinking, cocktailing? I know Terry Manane's going to pop up with a coffee. I get it. It's all good. Remember, though, we encourage drinking, but we don't encourage over drinking. Please, if you have a problem, get some help. We're all out here for you. Pete, this is your cue. You say it all the time.
No, man. Hey, if you're dealing with issues, brother, it's okay to not be okay, but it is not okay not to do something about it. And if you're out there drinking, you have too many, man. That's why they invented Uber or Lyft or whatever your flavor today is, man. But don't drink and drive. It's expensive. It's dangerous.
So Pete's got some feedback from the last episode when we had a little bit of technical issues up on the front end, and we talked and riffed about some current topics for 10 or 15 minutes while we waited for homicide detective Jimmy Kennedy from NYPD and his great stories, and then how he transitioned to an SRO. And he got some good feedback. He said, hey, why don't you guys kick that up? So we're 16 episodes in. This is episode 16 for us this week. So 15 in, we're going to try a little bit different format tonight. We're going to talk, and we raised up a topic. Pete pinged me yesterday and said, listen, I think we need to talk about this because a couple of weeks ago, the president tagged Antifa as a terror organization. But what's interesting, and I didn't really realize it at the beginning, it kind of passed me up, was that the executive order might designate them as a domestic terror organization, but there's actually no terror designation law that exists. It really just depends on how we implement the federal agencies and what they do. And I'm all for that. Call it what you want. But yes, finally, someone is addressing this Antifa problem, which is over 5 years old. So what do you think, Pete? What's going on with that?
Well, no, you're right. Long overdue. And there is no domestic terrorism statute, but there are statutes they can use. Racketeering statute, the arson statutes, there's plenty of them. And, look, let's not kid ourselves. What is the definition of a terror organization? They use violence, right? Or extortion to achieve a political means. Well, what is Antifa trying to do? They're trying to change the way we live. They're trying to change our laws. But let's be honest. You even heard the FBI director, Ray, back in the day, that Antifa is not a real organization. That's a crock of shit. And I can tell you right now, because first off, pallets of frozen water bottles and pallets of bricks don't just show up at protests on their own, right? They don't just materialize. But I spoke to an agent one time who actually went to a bookstore in Tucson, right? He was looking to do some kind of work, undercover guy, and he heard about Antifa meeting. So he decided to go to this bookstore. So he shows up, and what do? As soon as he walks in the door, they start asking him a bunch of questions. They take out a basket. put your phone in the basket, put your key fob in the basket. They ask him what kind of watch he's wearing. They take his watch. They look at it. It's not a name brand watch. They ask him to put that in the basket. Then they wand them, right, with a magnetometer wand to see if he's got anything on him. Then they pat him down. Then they blindfolded him and took him to another location and grilled him again. Meanwhile, they also documented his driver's license information, all that stuff. And then basically they engage in conversation about what their plans are, what their beliefs are. And tell me, if you look at that methodology, that's no different than what the tradecraft that certain intelligence organizations do. So, I mean, how can you say that there's no Antifa when you have that kind of stuff happening, right? And then you have flags, right? Sometimes they wear what amount almost to a uniform, right? Especially those black bloc folks who are going out there creating all kinds of havoc. And then, even here when they had the Summer of Love and they had the assault on the White House, I was still with ATF at the time, and I was in D.C. during some of that period. And if you walk through some of these expensive hotels like the JW Marriott, right? You saw some of these knuckleheads staying there. They were having a grand old time, and you wonder who's paying for their travel because none of them were from D.C. So look, are they centralized? I don't believe they are. But I think this is a smart move because I think that you need to go after their funding sources. You need to cut their legs off. And here's the other thing that really pissed me off. And we'll go back to the Summer of Love when they were assaulting the courthouse in Oregon, if you remember. They were blinding U.S. Marshals with lasers. They were throwing commercial grade fireworks at law enforcement, which, by the way, are regulated explosives, right? They were using arson, Molotov cocktails. Why was there no outrage? And I get it. What happened at the Capitol on January 6th, granted, some people were there, looped into it because they just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. But there were people there that broke the law and assaulted law enforcement, and they deserve everything they got. But you can't say that those people deserve to be investigated, possibly arrested, incarcerated, and not say that people attacking a federal courthouse don't deserve the same exact treatment. So I think it's overdue. I don't think we should tolerate violence when it's driven from left-leaning ideologies or right-leaning ideologies. The protest ends when the violence begins or when you start breaking other people's shit. And that includes the taxpayer shit. And that's where I'm going to end my rant because I know you probably have some thoughts on that yourself.
Yeah. So, the Summer of Love, I have a real bee in my bonnet over that stuff. And the other conversations as it related to J6 that really frustrated me was two things can be true at the same time. A lot of really innocent people who may or may not have made a dumb move got arrested and had their rights violated and nothing and no repercussions. But at the same time, there could also be a lot of really bad people who did some bad things on that day, and they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Two things can be true, and I was really pissed off at all the people that said no, it was one or the other. And then when they came out with the pardons, which I supported, because my education through the detective journey was always better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent person go to jail. So the blanket pardons was because of the horrible investigative approach and not separating the difference between the two groups of stupid people in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe doing a dumb thing, maybe even, as some video suggests, led into the building.
There is an infamous video with some short little Capitol cop waving people into the building.
Exactly.
And look, going back to the charging again, there's no domestic terrorism statute. And again, I'm not saying there's a centralized Antifa, but there are cells and they operate independently in some ways. I think there's probably some coordination, but for a racketeering case, some of the prerequisite felonies are already there. They're using extortion and they're using arson to further their political means. Charge them with with RICO. Go after them. Go after the money. Go after the people. It's to me mind-numbing that it's taken this long to decide that people who've caused billions of dollars worth of damage deserve to be investigated and prosecuted. It's mind-blowing to me. They've gotten a pass for a long time, and it's because of the name Antifa. They're anti-fascist. So how can you be against people who are anti-fascist? So that means, like, if I was to start a group called Feed the Babies and start going out there and robbing banks, doing crazy shit, that I should get away with it because, hey, who doesn't want to feed babies? I mean, it's just bullshit. It's whatever.
Right. So let's talk about the money, right? So one of the critics' views of the of this issue is that it's an ideology, not an entity like you're talking about. However, that doesn't mean there's little bits of cells who get together and organize. And to your point before, when you're talking about pallets of bricks being dropped off, gallons of water, frozen water, who's peeing in the bottles, by the way? Who's organizing the pee fest? Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, and there's it's clear. And then I know for a fact that DC cops who made arrests during the Summer of Love, mass arrests of entire vans full of people, and not one of those people were from DC. So to your point, who's paying their travel? Do you think the trust fund babies that these blue-haired kooks are really being funded by their trust funds? Maybe.
No,
but there's also some that are being funded by a repository of buying plane tickets and putting these people on planes and buses and trains.
Correct. I hear some of the money comes from a foundation called the Tides Foundation, which is part of George Soros's Open Societies Network. Some of the money's coming from overseas. And look, going back to what I was saying earlier, the way they treated the guy with having him throw his key fob, his watch. And look, those are all things that are commonly used by undercovers. So they have some knowledge of surveillance techniques, right? They're using countermeasures. So, but when you look at that, what's to say that these aren't people who are actors from foreign governments who want to come here and foment issues? You know, obviously we have enemies, the Russians, we have the Chinese, they're doing things within our borders. So what's to say that they're not funding some of these things to help, again, just cause unrest? So, but if we don't address it, it's only going to get worse. But I'll tell you what, man, and this is going to make me sound like a bad guy. Tommy, you know, I put myself on the line to out police misconduct. I fought to get people out of jail when cases weren't handled the right way. And so I am all for good policing. But I will not lie. There's some of the videos I watch of the police finally taking the fight to some of these assholes that I could sit and watch on a loop all fucking day. It's nice to see the cops being cops in some places.
Yep. So Kaiwan Calendar, that seems to be a new viewer on the chat. So welcome, Kaiwan. Awfully chatty today in the chat. But this comment I want to call out. No one is paying their travel. I'm guessing it's mutual aid. They're paying each other. They're giving each other the money to travel. You give a guy $10 here, he'll come to your city, give a guy $9 there, back and forth. Whatever it is, somehow it's being organized. Somehow people are communicating that we'll do this for you. You rub my back, I'll rub your back. Something's happening. Something's coordinated. And then where does that fall in the RICOs and the cases that they can bring together if they are helping each other traverse the country, Pete? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and look, some of these groups aren't again, there's no one network. It's not a hierarchy. It's cells. So some of them are probably getting money different ways than others. So in the instances where they can follow the money, then go after the money, seize it, and prosecute people. In the other instances where there's knuckleheads that are doing things for other reasons, hey, man, you don't need to have a funding source to engage in racketeering. So charge these people with arson, charge them with extortion, put them in jail. And that's the other thing, Tommy, and you know how this works. Once they're in jail, flip them. Some of these people, when they interview some of these people at these protests, some of them don't even know what they're protesting about. They don't know the information. So you know what? Sit in jail for a while. And then you want to get out of jail, you enter into a cooperation agreement and tell everybody everything you know and run it like an investigation. None of this, well, there's nothing to see here bullshit. And look, I have no patience for them. And I have no patience for the Proud Boys or these other groups that go out there and stir shit on the right either. I am a law and order independent. I'm not a subscriber to either tribe.
That's right. And so it leads me to a story that I want to talk about Jack Maple in New York and when the crime turnaround started. I'll get right into that real quick. So there was a big federal case going on. Something happened in Queens, and it was a murder in Queens that was definitely drug and organized crime related. With multiple different groups. And this is in the early to mid 90s after the Giuliani administration took over. And Jack Maple is running crime control strategies. And they also knew that this group was also doing clone cell phones. Remember when they were doing clone cell phones where they would have these transmitters up in tall high-rise buildings next to freeways and they would steal the signals and then clone those phones? Well, they knew this group was doing that. So Jack Maple suggested, well, let's just start arresting these guys for this clone cell phones. And the feds went completely bonkers. We don't do that. We build cases. We build cases. We build cases. Long-term cases. Maple goes, I've had it with this. I'm not putting up with that. He ordered people to go out And I'm condensing the story, of course. He ordered people, go out and lock these guys up for the cell phones. And they did exactly what you just said, Pete. As soon as you brought them in, bullshit charges, a couple of them caved, gave you the openings into the investigation, and bam, there you go. And the whole thing broke. And they're like, yeah, we're already done. We're wrapped up. You guys wouldn't have even gotten off the couch.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, brother. And we could do a whole episode on this other stuff. But we got an interesting guest joining us today. So
yes, we do. We do. So let's bring Jeff in, and I'm gonna tee it up for you, Pete. It's all yours.
Yeah, look, I never met Jeff, never worked with Jeff. As you know, Tommy, I was the agent in charge of the Miami Field Division, and I got an opportunity to work with Carlos Canino, who was, by the way, our first guest. And when I was down there, I was always treated really well by the City of Miami cops and the Miami-Dade cops, because I was not because I was an ATF agent per se, but because I was a former NYPD cop. I was treated like family, like instantly. And I had been down there a bunch of times on a couple of different cases, to include the murder of Donald Pagani up in the 4-1, where we had a long-term manhunt down there in Miami. So we worked with MDPD. In fact, I mentioned some names to Jeff earlier, Bill Fiskus and June Hawkins, the captain. But when I got down to Miami, all I used to hear about is Jeff Lewis. So Jeff did a bunch of cases back in the day, and what I was told is that he was the real deal, and he was like the real police, and that he was a guy that I had to meet. And unfortunately, while I was down there working in Miami, I never got a chance to meet him. So we connected on LinkedIn. I've read some of his posts. I know of some of the work he's done. And I said, you know something, I never got to meet him in person, but I've heard great stories about him. So what better opportunity than to bring him here and hear some of the stuff that was going on in Miami back in the good old days, which I guess in some ways were the bad old days. So Jeff, man, welcome, brother.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tom, for having me on. I always enjoy talking cop shit.
Well, we're going to talk cop shit, that's for sure. Jeff, welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you again. Same thing on LinkedIn. And obviously, your career, Robbery Homicide, very interesting to me, having worked in both, but then also cold case as well, and what you're currently doing at Seminole County. So we're going to get into that later for sure. But before we get into you and your career, you listened in, you were back in the studio. Any thoughts on Antifa and what's going on? What was your experience down in Florida? Share any insights you might have.
Well, let me show you this, if you can see this. This is 2003. In 2003, we had the Free Trade Area of America organization came to Miami. They were holding a 3 or 4 day conference. And in preparation for that conference, we were all the major police departments, City of Miami, our police department, Miami Beach, et cetera, were getting feedback that we were going to be inundated with all these organizations that were going to come in and start protesting, rioting, disrupting all the events. And we learned it was the Green Party, the Communist Party, animal rights activists, climate change activists, would all get together and conspire at that time to go to locations where these events were being held to do exactly what Antifa does today. One of the things we learned, first of all, our department formulated a plan to make sure that we kept everything under control. We set that high security fence all on Biscayne Boulevard. We set up a location for them to have their demonstrations. And while this was occurring, we learned during our training that they were very well organized. They were distributing literature amongst themselves, how to chain yourselves together, how to obstruct the police, how to attack a policeman on a horse, throw marbles on the ground so the horse will fall. All these things that they were going to do in an effort to fight us, who was trying to control them. What we also did was we embedded officers within their group. And I just heard Pete describe what that one individual went through before they would even have a conversation with him. But by doing that, we gathered a lot of information. We learned where they were going to be housed, where they were staying. They had lawyers on standby. They had bail money, just like they do now. So to me, that was the precursor to Antifa. And it's probably the same group and organizations that was doing this back in 2003 that's probably still involved in it through the evolution of Black Lives Matter. That's when Antifa really came to be known, was through the Black Lives Matter operation. You had up in New York, you had the WTO, they had the city block up there where people were staying. They had Chaz, they had Chop out west, right?
Yep.
It's all the same stuff. It's all organized.
Yes,
And
it is.
like Pete was saying, if you finally have somebody, to me, track the money, start with that. We already know the people are, for the most part. Find out, identify your leaders, track the money. You've got all these predicate acts that have been going on. If you do a conspiracy, you do a RICO, you go back, 10 years? I don't know. How far can you
go back? A RICO, you can do up to life.
Right. So you go back, take all these cities that they've been to, all these riots, when they burned down the damn police precincts. I'd put all that in this huge RICO investigation is what I would do.
Yeah.
And then work your way. Like Pete says, you start low, bring in a few of the knuckleheads, get them to talk, maybe hook them back up, put them back out as sources. Who knows? Build your case. You don't have to build it tomorrow. Shit, these conspiracy cases can take a few years. So what? That means everything once you've got the investigation going, now everything they do once that's started, guess what? That's good for the investigation. That's new information. Those are new laws that they broke. That gives us more evidence, gives us more gunpower, firepower to work with. So to me, like I say, this is something that's been going on. And unless we do actually crack down on it, what's it going to do? And the problem is, who are they attacking? They're attacking us, cops, ICE, law enforcement, our cars, where we work. Now they're following you home. Now you got politicians are bitching because our cops are trying to cover their faces to keep from being attacked and doxxed. Okay, it's getting to the point where it's no longer just you go in for your, like we went in, we made sure that we took care of them. If they got out of hand, guess what? We locked their asses up. We chased them. We chased them into Overtown because they come at us. We took out. I was on a police shooting team for that. We were ready, and we planned for it, and we didn't let them take anything over. We didn't let them burn our cars. Miami-Dade don't fuck around. We did everything we had to do to keep that from happening, and they still do today. Because if
well, let's be honest. No police department should let anyone fuck around. Is right, if they do. But God, Pete.
No, here's the problem, guys. I mean, look, just as bad as these assholes are, and some of them never worked a day in their life. They're shitheads that want to go out and they think it's cute to go out there and protest and do dumb stuff and break people's stuff. But you know who I blame just as much as these idiots, and of course the people who use them as puppets and pay them, is the prosecutors that won't put them in jail.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like anything else, man. Absolutely. When there's no consequences, people are going to do bad things. Absolutely. Even us growing up, right? If we knew that we would not get in trouble for things, we would have did things that we wouldn't have otherwise done. You know what I mean? Humans are no different than animals, right? We're part of the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes the dog needs to hold up newspaper to deter him from doing something. Hey, sometimes people need to be afraid of going to jail to make them think twice about doing something stupid.
Got Jeff.
I was going to say that ties into Soros, who backs all these prosecutors and funds their run for office so they can get into office and not enforce the damn laws.
Oh, you're right.
All hand in hand.
A lot of their funding is coming from the same people. So you're entirely correct.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to comment on something you said before, Jeff. Like, it's okay for these cases to take a couple of years, which is true. I think all three of us would agree with that. You said it, so clearly the two of us would agree. However, because they haven't done that for at least 5 years now, and let's say you start now and you're 3 years away, you're talking about an 8-year gap where these people have felt no repercussions. And only when that first hammer really drops, someone really hard, is someone's going to wake up and say, so we still got a long way to go. So I'm agreeing with that, with the prosecutors for sure. But I want to add one thing. It's not just the prosecutors. I'm telling you who I think is the most evil component out of all of this is the mainstream media. They are not doing their jobs. If they told the truth, then the prosecutors couldn't get away with what they're doing. And if they told the truth, then the cops and the weak leadership who don't let people fuck around in their cities, Jeff, would not happen.
All right, and let me just add that to what you're saying. I totally agree with you. But in this type of investigation, you start this investigation, you hit it maybe first 2, 3, 4 months, right? You don't say shit. About that 5th month, you let it get out there. You are under investigation. This is what's going on. We are dragging. Guess what? That sends a chilling effect now to people across the country. Say, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go to Chicago and demonstrate this month because now they're out after us. So at the minimum, if you can quell some of that, continue with the investigation. It's a double-edged sword, but it might work a little bit that way as well.
No, I agree, but let's take it one step further, and then I want to hear about your career. Let's look at some of these elected officials, some of these assholes, like the current city controller in New York, who twice decided to go into the ICE courthouse or immigration courts and literally go hands-on with agents. It's a felony, right? How many times are you going to let him get away with it? Because when he's an elected leader, right? He's sending a message that it's okay. When you see these other assholes passing laws that say, well, we're not going to allow ICE to operate in our city or our state. Hey, supremacy clause. They know that they can't pass laws that are going to stop the feds from doing certain things. But what they're doing is they're sending a message that what they're doing is bad, which inspires people. Well, if they're doing something bad, them being the feds, then it's just to protest them and go hands on with them. So some of the elected officials are bigger scumbags than the media and some of these Antifa clowns. Again, I think a lot of them are shitheads who just have nothing better to do, and they think it's cute because they look up to those folks from back in the day, like the SLA and the BLA, and wow, it was cool to be a revolutionary. Whatever.
You know what I would
do? So I have one more final. I have one more final thought on all of the shenanigans between, and they're not even shenanigans. They're outrageous criminal terrorist activities. When you said who are they hurting, Jeff? Like, yes, the cops, all the doxing, all the assaults, all the shootings, everything too. But if you look at Minneapolis and what happened there, and in Seattle, so many people, small business owners, and not only that, minority small business owners, women, small. I thought you cared about them. They don't. Let's be clear. This is about power and money. They don't care about the people they purport to represent. It's a hard stop.
Yep.
Be done with it.
And let me add this. Number one, what I would do if I'm running this investigation, once I get this thing up and going and I get a grand jury seated, I start subpoenaing these politicians, put them in front of a grand jury. Let's hear your story in front of a grand jury. Are you with them? Or are you against them? Are you part of it or not? Can we drag your ass in and maybe charge you with something? I don't know. But guess what? You're getting subpoenaed and you're going to come in. Okay. Number two, what you just said, Tom, not only happens during these demonstrations. I was in 4 or 5 riots in Miami in my career. And guess what happens in a riot in Miami? They burn and they loot Liberty City, Overtown, Carroll City. Those are all black areas. They're not white areas. They don't go to Kendall or Aventura. And they burn the shit out of them. They shut these businesses down. And the politicians let it happen because they tell the police, stand down a little bit on the first day. Then you guys can go in the second. Well, by the second day, most shit's burned.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it's not funny.
Now that we got our blood pressures up, gentlemen, now we can have.
But you're totally right, and I hate to say it, but that's probably always going to be that way because nobody has the balls to say, hey, don't burn down the black area. Okay, if they came into my neighborhood, you think the police chief over here and the mayor over here would let that shit happen? No.
Heck no. All right, Jeff Lewis, let's hear it, baby. Where'd you grow up?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yep. That's where I was born and raised. That's where I decided to be a police officer. My next door neighbor was a Columbus cop, and I always wanted to be a Columbus, Ohio police officer. I joined the Air Force, was a cop in the Air Force in 76 after I graduated high school. Got out, applied to Columbus. I didn't meet the quota. They weren't hiring white guys, so they didn't hire me. But while I was in the Air Force, I was state certified in the state of Florida. And I got out in 1980. In May of 1980, Miami had the worst race riot in the history of the country at that time, the McDuffie riots. So all the policemen with the city of Miami and Miami-Dade left. They quit. So neither department could hire quick enough or fast enough. They came down to the base and recruited a bunch of us that were state certified through the Air Force. And that's how I got hired by the Miami-Dade. 2 weeks after getting out of the Air Force, I was in a lateral class with Miami-Dade. And then 2 weeks later, I'm on the street and I didn't know anything, nothing. My partner, you see right there, that's Steve. Steve was an Opelika police officer. And I met him in my lateral class. He's the one that basically showed me the ropes. I don't know if you're familiar with Opelika, but it is considered to be the most dangerous city in the country at times because of the homicide rate compared to the population of the city. and Steve was walking patrol on Alibaba Avenue, which is the toughest avenue in Opelika. So I did learn a lot from him. And I was stationed. My first job was in Liberty City, Midnight Central District. And within a week or two in the squad, 2 officers of my squad got shot on an ambush responding to a domestic. A week later, another cop got ambushed on another squad. So I'm like, this is the real deal. This is Miami-Dade, and this is Central District. And every night we went in, just like you guys in New York, anywhere. I don't care if it's the smallest city in the country. Prepare to survive, because you never know what's coming. And these officers didn't know what was coming. By the time I left Central District, one of my partners had to shoot and kill a Mariolito coming in from the end of the shift. My other partner had to shoot somebody, got indicted for murder, was found not guilty, went back to work, had to shoot another individual while he was in robbery, Tommy Palecchio, God rest his soul. Wow. He died of cancer. We had an officer that was walking up on a car, got shot in the face. A guy was raping a girl. He eventually succumbed to that and died from that. He got sick from that. Just a lot of, it was crazy. I got shot in a drug raid when I went to the crime suppression team. Jamaicans were running the marijuana. Selling, today you could fucking go to anywhere, a dispensary, and get it. Back then you had to go into the ghetto and buy it from a Jamaican in a nickel bag, and almost got killed over a damn nickel bag of marijuana. And then of course, just from there, I went to robbery, and that was another job in Miami. That was in 1982. I'd only been on the job 2 years when I was asked to go to robbery. And when I went to robbery, we were handling 10,000 robberies a year. Just my department. That's not what the city of Miami was handling, or Hialeah or Miami Beach. Just Miami-Dade Police Department was handling that many robberies a year. We had like 30 or 40 guys in the unit. And the 2 terms that you hear today were coined in my office: home invasion robbery and carjacking. Oh, wow. Both of those crimes started in Miami. Mm-hmm. And of course, wow. You guys are well aware of the drug trade in Miami. This car here, that was a second riot after the McDuffie riot, where my good friend that I was in the Air Force with, and who later got on the department, was shot. He got hit in the elbow, and he was sitting in the back seat. This was 4 to a car going into the Scott Projects after there had been a police shooting. And in those days, every time we had a controversial police shooting, you get a crowd, rocks and bottles, people yelling like you see on TV now. It was almost an every night occurrence when I worked. But we looked forward to it. It was just something we did, and we enjoyed doing it, and didn't think twice about it. So John Butchko got shot. That was a shotgun that they shot into his car when they hit his car. But tourist robberies, I'm sure you guys heard of tourists getting robbed in Miami. The drug robberies were just unbelievable. I mean, just crazy. And what it was, you would have when the Mario boat lift occurred in 1980. Castro obviously emptied all his jails. The criminals, the crazy people, the bad guys, the good people. Over 150,000 people, I think it was, more than that maybe, actually came into Miami-Dade through Key West. They took the boats from Key West. They had a boat line from Florida City down to Key West, where the family members were going down to pick them up. Brought them into Miami. They didn't know what, they were literally staying in tents. They were living under I-95. They were living in Opelika at the blimp hangar. We didn't know what to do with them. Then we started shipping them out to New Jersey and I think Texas and some other places. But we were inundated. And what happened was these drug dealers would hire these guys to move their drugs. And back then, you had the canals. These drug dealers would live on a canal and bring the drugs up through the canal, or however they would bring it in. Well, the guys who were moving it would tell their buddies, "Hey, listen, he's getting a load in tonight at this time. Hit it." Well, these guys decided the easiest way to do it was to dress up like police officers.
Yeah, of course.
That's where the police impersonation stuff started in Miami, where these guys doing drug robberies. So they would go in, they would do the robbery, and of course, 9 times out of 10, the drug dealer He's not going to report it. Why is he going to report it? But what happens when you live in a nice neighborhood and you don't have a Waze? You hit the wrong goddamn house. So you're knocking on the door of an innocent family thinking they're drug dealers, and you're going inside that house. You're torturing everybody. You're tearing the house up looking for drug money. It's the wrong. Sometimes you shoot and kill. Sometimes you shoot. Police get called. And it happened a lot. You never knew who your neighbor was. Or if during the actual drug robbery, somebody got shot, somebody got murdered, or a neighbor would hear the commotion, they would call the police.
Right.
And of course, we'd get there, you got, and they'd always handcuff our drug dealers were always handcuffed, because he's going as a cop. And we get there, and the first thing they say is they have no idea what's going on. Well, you got like $100,000 in cash. Like, don't know nothing about it. That's not my money. And we're not stupid. Yeah, and that was a common theme. And then, of course, once you start handling a few of those, you know the drill. And sometimes they would cooperate. A few times we actually did, because sometimes kids would be victimized. And the wife, it would usually be the wife of the husband who would call the police, because the children were tied up. The children were beaten. Then we get to call in, and we go in, and we were able to make some arrests. And man, we had so many gangs of drug robbers. It was crazy. And what would these guys do? They hit you for a couple $100,000, right? They go out and they rent themselves a high-powered car. They go buy the best cocaine they can buy. They go to the Mutiny Hotel. They rent the most expensive room. They buy the bottles of champagne. They get the hookers, and they party till they spend all that money. Then guess what? They go back and do it again.
So good.
It's funny. It's not funny. I'm glad you're bringing this up. A lot of people don't realize, man, like, think about it. You're sitting in your house, right? And as Jeff pointed out, you live in an affluent neighborhood, or not, even in an apartment, because I saw this a lot in New York. And next thing you know, you're being robbed by people dressed up as cops, right? And they get information from their sources. In New York, they were often livery cab drivers, would be the tipsters. We call them Santeros in New York, right? So they're going in there thinking, hey, there's a stash of drugs and a shit ton of money in here. And the people that are sitting there saying, I don't have anything, these guys think they're being lied to. Some of the things I'd see, man, I remember we interviewed one guy, and it was because the case was we were about to hit the statute of limitations. The guy was a livery driver who was accused of being a courier. So we knock on his door, me and this guy, Steve Palermo. And the guy opens his door reluctantly, because these guys that first robbed him were posing as cops. And he tells us to follow him into his living room. What they did was, when the guy was saying, hey, I don't have anything, you got the wrong guy, they took the plancha, the iron, and they burned his back. They would torture him with the iron. So here, 4.5, almost 5 years later, we're following this guy into his living room, and all you see on his back is the perfect scars of an iron. Meanwhile, the guy was a victim. So yeah, Jeff, you're entirely correct. A lot of people don't realize, like, people that rob drug dealers, it's a victimless crime. Fuck it. No, man. The Bello case, 145 robberies. We only learned about it because 13 times they hit the wrong door.
So what do you have? Like an old forge? It said Old Forge, the cast iron pan, the plancha on his back. It's so funny. Poor
guy had literally
really bad.
What kind of iron it was, Rowento, whatever. Right? You can see the perfect imprint on his back like 6 times. Everybody screaming, hey, you got the wrong house. And they're like, yeah, fuck you. You're lying to us. And then we had another case. This guy's daughter was raped in front of him because they thought he was holding on. These people are savages, these home invaders. You don't enter into the criminal element as a home invader. You graduate into that level of crime.
Yep. So, Jeff, what you mentioned about, like, the wives or the girlfriends, baby's mama, right? And by the way, baby mama, Timmy Pearson from the NYPD, who went on to become a deputy mayor for Eric Adams, he once said in a Comstat, we should have a baby mama database. So that's a true story. I was there. I heard it. Meanwhile, Timmy Pearson is part of the administration and then the city council, and they want to abolish the gang database. But yet Timmy Pearson, 15 years, 20 years earlier, was saying we need to establish a baby mama database. So that's a true story. I heard it with my own ears. But Jimmy Kennedy, who was on last week, once had a child killed in an ambush on the car with the drug dealer, intended driver, baby in the passenger seat, takes the round, goes DOA, and he thought the path to getting this case solved was the mom. And she beeped him about 2 weeks later, and when he recognized the number, he said, she's coming around. She's going to tell me what's going on. You know what she said to him, Jeffrey?
So go fuck yourself. We'll take care of it.
She said, we took care of ourselves.
Listen, we had a 6-month-old baby standing in the driveway. These are Haitians now. Fast forward before I retired, and I'm working these Haitians with 2 ATF agents, Teresa Mesa, and Joe Milligan, unfortunately, who passed away.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we're working these gangs of Haitians, and the guy that the Haitian gang leader's washing his car in the driveway. 2 guys walk up with their assault rifles, start shooting him. He runs, he leaves his baby. They shoot and kill the baby, literally 2 or 3 months old, on the driveway.
Of course.
So you would think the mother would. So what the mother did during the course of our investigation, we were working out with the city of Miami, because we ended up with like probably 40 or 50 murders and shootings between these gangs that we were working. And the mother said to the father, we're not going to tell the police, but you're going to get these guys. And he did. He got information through somebody at the courthouse. 3 of them had a court date, traffic court. Waited for them to leave the courthouse in a van. There were 4 in the van, and they ambushed them, killed 3, left 1 survivor who I got to cooperate, and we were able to tie it all together later on. But, you know, it happened in our Booby Boys case. 5-year-old kid got killed. They don't give a fuck about us.
Well, I'm going to play the liberal side of it, because I'm pretty much a liberal, right? But I've been educated through the process over the years. Does the mom not care about the baby and just goes about business as usual? Or is the mom just scared out of her mind and she thinks she has no alternative and she has to roll with the flow?
I've seen enough cases here. Another example. Don't have a birthday party and have somebody looking for you, because they go to that party and they shoot everybody, the women, the children, the men. Okay. Everybody dies. Everybody gets shot. I couldn't tell how many times we handle those cases. And guess who calls us and wants to help? Nobody.
Yeah.
I
think it's a mixed bag. I think some of these people are just, it's part of the culture. I mean,
it is.
It's against the culture, male or female. And then some of them are probably scared. But look,
they are.
Yeah.
And I understand that as well. But guess what? We have Crime Stoppers.
Right.
Call Crime Stop. You don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, I had a case, double homicide, 2 women standing on a corner. 1 was pregnant, drive-by shooting, kills all 3. Okay. Man, I try like hell to get somebody to give me something. Nothing. To this day, that's still an open case. And that was in broad daylight. So I don't know. You know, I get the culture. I understand it. I spent 99% of my time in the inner city of Miami, and ask anybody that's a real cop, you want to be there. You don't want to be in Kendall. You don't want to be in Aventura. You don't want to be where the rich people, you want to be where the shit is, and you want to help people. You want to get, because there's some really good people that live in these neighborhoods. Somebody's got to help them.
Yes.
And that's what we did. You know, you're a good cop. That's where you do your job, is in the inner city. Okay. They appreciate it when you do help them, number 1. And number 2, if they're going to help you, they're all in. And I mean, from the street crack whore to the drug dealer on the corner, depending on how you motivate them, to the people that are in the neighborhoods that you knock on the door and do an air canvas on. So, and I was very lucky. I was able to solve the majority of my cases in those areas, because you got to know how to talk to people, and you got to get off your goddamn ass and go do it, and not wait at your desk for the phone call to come in.
Get off your ass and knock on doors.
Bosh.
That's it. That's right.
Right.
Couple things real quick. So I have to address this. So first of all, Jeff reminds me of Arn A.A. Anderson. Does anyone know who that is? No. All right. Sleepy Joe. Indulge. But in the meantime, to all the finest Unfiltered family, Juju has finally entered the chat in the 10-4 Tavern. So Juju, welcome. Love to see you. It's fantastic. Tom Joyce, a liberal question mark. My family grew up as Kennedy Democrats. I'm a social liberal, fiscal conservative, but I'm right of Genghis Khan on crime. So there you go. I stand on an island.
I think that's all of us. That's me.
Exactly. Do either one of you guys care about gay marriage? I mean, I'm not getting into the church, but would you welcome 2 gay guys or 2 gay women into your house and welcome them, treat them like people?
Listen, Not only did I welcome them, they stayed in my house, and guess what they said when they left? We treated them better than their own parents. That was sad to hear.
There you go. There you go.
My daughter's in the My daughter's in the theater. Okay, she sings, she dances. Who do you think she hangs around with? You know, when she was doing all that stuff. That's that world. She was up in New York for 4 years trying to get on Broadway. You know, that's where she met these guys. They worked on Broadway. So that shit don't bother me.
The sad part, man, is you just defined most of us. I mean, look, are there some asshole cops who are racist or whatever? Yeah. Are there some homophobes? Yeah. But the lion's share, the vast majority, legions of cops are just like us. The sad part is the way we're portrayed. If you look at, and candidly, a lot of it's our elected officials. We're portrayed as like goons, hooligans, that we look down our nose at everybody. The thin blue line, as if it's a bad thing to honor the line between good and bad that we represent. They portray it as, oh, this is a racist symbol. It's crap. It's all crap.
Well, Jeff's comments that he just made about working in these lower socioeconomic communities, whether it be Hispanics, blacks, or even whites to whatever level that is in whatever communities. I was never exposed to a very low socioeconomic white community, but definitely Hispanic. And the 7-9 where probably my heart and soul lies. I spent 1,856 days there. Was like 98% African American. And then when you saw the white guy walk down the block at that time, you'd say, oh, there he is. That's it. There he is. You know what I mean? And we worked so hard, and we fought with the media to tell our stories of our cases. And we fought with the prosecutors to help us move this case along. But you know what? The white lady in Midtown who got hit with a brick and lived got more work, more attention by the media, by the prosecutors than any of my kids, any of my babies, any of the women that got killed, any of the cases that happened in the predominantly African-American bedside community. And we're sitting there going, are we the only ones that care about these people? So
every day,
I don't care what anybody says. I'll take that to the bank. And I have people telling me who never stepped foot in an African-American community in their life telling me cops are racist.
Of course. They don't know.
So anyway, let's get back to,
I got a question.
Final thoughts on this, and we'll get back to Jeff's career.
Yeah, having worked in Miami-Dade County, right? Like I didn't know this till I got down there. I came down there a few times as a detective, but never understood the politics. So then I come down there to run the Miami office with Carlos, and then eventually Carlos leaves. And I didn't realize like how many police departments are in the county. There's a ton of them, right? Like within the Miami Field Division of ATF, there's like 97 police departments that you're servicing, trying to keep happy. And in Miami-Dade, a lot of them fell in that particular area. How was it working in the county when you had so many other police departments that had their own kind of personality and their own, way of doing business? Was that challenging at all, as you were coming up, or no?
Not really, because I never. First of all, you have 4 or 5 major departments. You got Miami Beach, Hialeah, City of Miami, Miami-Dade. Now you have Miami Gardens. Okay. So they all handle all their homicides, and there's a few smaller departments that handle their homicides. But when I was working, we didn't have Miami Gardens. We were Miami Gardens. But what happens when what's the bad guy do? He just doesn't stay in one area. It's just like shit. How many guys came down from New York to Miami and vice versa? Go all over the country. So in Dade County, these guys that are shooting somebody over here in Liberty City, in the city side, are also shooting somebody in Liberty City on the county side. So what happens is you start that working relationship with the detectives in these other police departments. I work very well with each and every police department. We didn't have much with Miami Beach because that's like its own island, literally. But every other police department and every other detective, by the time I left with what I was tasked to do, I was literally working and had meetings with weekly detectives from every major police department in Dade County. And we called it Perfect Storm. I was in charge of it because of all the shootings and murders that were going across jurisdictional lines. We even had BSO, Broward Sheriff, come down because some of our cases were being linked up there through NIBIN. So we work with everybody. And I always, my motto is this, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. Treat the other detective the same way you want to be treated. Treat anybody, really. But we all have our egos, and we all have our, we want to keep shit close to the vest sometimes. We want to work our cases, and I get that. But for the most part, what I found and what I did was share everything. I hide nothing. I never held anything. If I got information, that shit went out on a memorandum, on a piece of paper to everybody on this task force every day. And I don't care how big their department was. If they had one case, they're getting everything that we're getting. Because what don't I want to happen? Is have that one detective say, fuck Lewis. He didn't bother to give me that, even though I might eat him inadvertently. Because now, guess what? He poisons the well for everything that I'm doing, that everybody's doing. So I personally never had a problem. Plus, in the early days, we had a cop bar that City of Miami and Miami-Dade shared.
Yeah, that's right.
Homicide, sexual battery, robbery, both sides in that bar, and that's how you develop your relation. And literally close cases at the bar, drinking beer. You know, it happens. You guys, I'm sure, have done it too.
Well, what was foreign to me is the New York City Police Department covers 5 counties, right? The boroughs are each their own independent counties. But here you had Miami-Dade; it's in one county with a whole bunch of different police departments in the same county. And when I was down there as an executive, everybody got along pretty well, but there were some differences in opinion amongst executive staff, and some of the departments, I guess, had friendly rivalries and sometimes not so friendly rivalries with others. But it worked, and I'll tell you what: the cops down there in South Florida, I found to be family. I mean, just like the cops in the Northeast, man. I haven't seen that in too many other parts of the country, which was kind of cool, man. Reminded me of being home. But
it was like we only had one problem with the City of Miami. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Timoney, Chief Timoney.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
well,
sir.
When he came down to Miami and took over City of Miami Police Department, he drew a line. And there was some jurisdictional areas like where the Miami Heat plays basketball, jurisdiction around that, and some other things. And his way of thinking was he thought he was the sheriff, but he wasn't. And there were a few run-ins between we called him the director, and him. Right. But of course, our director always won because we're the sheriff. We have jurisdiction everywhere. I can go into your city. You can't come into my county unless I let you. You know, so. But other than that, I mean, all the chiefs pretty much got along. Even today, I mean, everybody gets along pretty well. They know the game. And you know what? With my department, if you need help, you're coming to us. Yeah, that's our job by law. We're the sheriff. So if you need help, we got to go, even if we don't want to. So if you decide you don't want to handle your robberies in Opelika, guess who does? We get it. Okay. Right. And of course, that filters down to, and it was more so in robbery than in homicide. Handling so many robberies, you always deal with the uniform guys first, right? Man, I tell you what, I wanted those guys to love me. You know why? Because when I needed them, I wanted them to work for me, and it worked. If I went back out and said, listen, guys, I'm looking for this guy, shit, within an hour, hey, we got him, Jeff, bring him to the office. We talk to him. Yeah, go ahead. You talk to him, and I'll talk to him. You know, whatever you want to do. Let's have fun. Let's get the guy off the street. And that went a long way in my career with helping me, again, do what I have to do, because it's not a one-man show here.
Right.
Okay? I mean, there may be some guys that think it is, but I guarantee you the other guys that work with him say he's the asshole.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you can't make everybody happy. Well, let's go back to your career, brother, where you left off. Because, I mean, you had a long and distinguished career.
So I did. Robbery I did for like 13, 14 years. And I learned a lot. I mean, that's where I learned how to interview, get confessions, do the leg work, do the real grunt work of being a detective. And I had a chance to go to homicide. If you recognize the actor, Kevin Bacon, that's the reason I said him.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So a funny story about this.
So Jeffrey Lewis is 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. He's 1 degree. He's 1 degree.
Now you guys are.
So we're 2 now.
He remember the movie Wild Things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. He was filming that. He was right.
Who doesn't?
Right. So he's filming that movie. So he wants to come into our office to get some advice on how to be a detective. Well, he comes in and they assign him to another squad. And, you got your guys that are workers. You got your guys that are half work. Well, unfortunately, that other squad was kind of like a half worker. So they didn't really do with him what I would have done. I would have taken him out on the street. They took him to dinner. But the funny story is that he's in the office and you see this shit on TV. And I'm watching this. I swear to God, I never thought I'd see it happen. The sergeant's on the phone and somebody's walking Kevin around to show him something. And the sergeant stops Kevin and says, "Hey, say hello to my wife." I'm like, oh my God, I thought that's only on TV. And this guy frickin' says, "Hey, will you say hello to my wife?" Now, let me tell you, Kevin Bacon was awesome. He was fantastic. And the girl that he's with was his co-star in that movie. And then, so fast forward a little bit, I told you my daughter was in theater. Well, my daughter had a major role in the play Rent down at FIU, where she was going to theater school. Well, the girl there was the lead actress in Rent and got a Tony Award for it. This was the only movie that she did because apparently they didn't like how she acted as a movie actress. But of course, this was way before my daughter became what she became. I would have loved to have melded that story. But anyhow, we had a great time with him. He only stayed with us for 8 hours. Super nice. And we were he said, hey, if you guys want to ask questions, he gave us a question and answer period, and he signed autographs and took pictures with everybody. I don't know if he had a great time, but hey, we were starstruck. Yeah, we're easy.
So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because him and Kara Sedgwick, husband and wife, they don't live in Hollywood, and that tells you all you need to know. Right. So that doesn't surprise me to hear that. Good deal.
And he was a really good guy. But to get to Homicide, like I said, I loved Robbery. I really did. But some things were changing. I went there in 82, I think it was 82 or 83. And then it was 1996 when my old robbery sergeant, the guy who wrote this book, The Booby Boys, which I highly recommend.
Plug it. Go ahead, plug it.
The Booby Boys. This was the gang that we worked with Carlos. Carlos Canino is mentioned in this book.
Our first guest.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Carlos was our ATF agent, and we utilized the kind of like the technique you talked about, Pete, where you bring in the lower level knuckleheads and you cop them out. Well, we did that with the Booby Boys, but we did it with gun charges. You got a group, you got a gang, you know who all the players are. You can't put a murder on them yet. You can't get anybody to testify against them. So we got with ATF and we said, everybody qualified federally to be charged with a gun charge, let's do it. And that's how we started this investigation, started making arrests. The case started when I picked up a double homicide in Liberty City. For 10 years, this gang had been in operation. They couldn't do anything about it. They had been at war with another gang who the Fed shut down, but they didn't shut Bowie and his gang down. So the next day, I got a call from my sergeant. He says, listen, we're going to be on a task force. They want something done about this gang. So we put together a DEA, ATF, the marshals. We got a U.S. prosecutor, Chris Clark, brought some other detectives in that handled some of the shootings. We had a task force. About a year it took us. This book, I highly recommend. It's not only entertaining, it's not only features the crime in Miami, but you're going to read names in here, people you see on TV today, rappers, Rick Ross, who's a big rapper who was tied in with Booby. I mean, a lot of interesting stuff. And you get it on Amazon. And my sergeant, Tony, wrote it. Well, Tony came to the robbery office one night and tapped on my shoulder, literally said, you ready to go to Homicide? I said, yeah, I'm ready. So, it's called being in the right place at the right time. That's how I got to robbery on a former uniform sergeant. We were sitting in the Orange Bowl watching a Dolphins game on a Monday night. And we were both drinking. He said, hey, Jeff, you want to go to robbery? Yeah, I like to go to robbery. I was in robbery. I was lucky. I was at crime suppression team at the time, and then I went to robbery. This picture here, this is the old robbery office. Again, that's my partner, Steve, the same guy you saw in uniform.
Oh, okay.
So me and Steve worked in uniform, robbery, and homicide, and then today we both work on the cold case squad because he lives up here with me now.
That's great. We'll get to the cold case squad later for sure. Right. I want to comment. Right place, right time. A lot of talk on the Finest Unfiltered channel and the Executive Perspective, and even Sal Greco's show. All the shows on this platform, they talk about nepotism, and Eric Dim constantly talks about, in the New York City Police Department, promotions via rocket fuel. But I will say that some people have been in the right place at the right time, but they wouldn't have asked you, Jeff, if they didn't think you were capable. And you probably made your own way. And then I have learned over the years that luck is opportunity plus preparedness, right? It's because that is luck. Because, yeah, you might have the opportunity, but if you can't seize it, you don't know what you're talking about, you're not going to be able to leverage that anyway. And if you did go to robbery, you'd probably flounder if you weren't prepared to do that job. So they saw it. So yes, right place, right time, but be able to seize that opportunity. So kudos to you for getting to the robbery squad. But the homicide, Explain. I might have missed it while I was doing some production stuff. How'd you jump from robbery to homicide?
My old sergeant asked me if I was ready to go.
Ready to go. That's right. Okay, got it.
And now I did go through a process. They didn't just pick me up, put me there. I did have to go through the interview process, and I did have to compete against other detectives and all that kind of stuff. And I did. And
well, let me ask you guys this. Let me ask you this with the robbery squad. What I have learned and observed through our detective bureau, the only difference between a robbery investigation, and I mean the big robberies, and a homicide is a dead body. Because you have crime scenes, you have forensics. If it's a bank robbery, if it's a home invasion, if it's home invasion with injuries, like you can be in a robbery squad and do all the investigative process just like a homicide. So that is the unit that most prepares you for homicide work. You just got to learn the processing of a dead body, the injuries, the postmortem examinations, and go through all of that with the pathologist. But other than that, that is the best place to work yourself into. And I have people that ended up in cold case with me, Jeff, that never even worked a homicide, never even worked a robbery. And that's the nepotism rocket fuel stuff. Another topic for another day. Let's get back to your homicide.
And listen, trust me, there were. I saw a few of those folks come through robbery and homicide, and frustrating. You know, I mean, I have a standard. My standard is this: if you're a robbery detective, and in particularly, and more so, if you're a homicide detective, if somebody in my family gets robbed or murdered, God forbid, do I want you to handle the case? If I don't, I want you in fucking homicide or robbery. If I pick you to handle my case, I know you know what the fuck you're doing. You're going to do your job. So that's
for you. It's all or nothing. Either I want you on that case or
absolutely. Now we work as a squad, and my sergeant told me this. Said, listen, Jeff, there's always going to be 3 levels of detectives, 3 levels anywhere, any job you go to. And when you're on a squad, is everybody going to be 100% like me? No, and I don't want them to be either. You know, because there are some things that they may be able to do that I can't do or don't want to do that they're great at. And I get that. Admin shit, things like that, you know, getting coffee or whatever, you know, that's good shit. You got to have somebody to do that. Okay. But for the nitty gritty, I was always lucky. I always had my squad were top-notch guys. And I had a sergeant that would outwork everybody all the time. Tony. I mean, this guy was incredible. This guy was more of a detective than a sergeant in robbery as well. And he cut his teeth in robbery. So I was always lucky to have great robbery sergeants and Tony and some other homicide sergeants. And what makes that work? They let you do your job, right? If you get a sergeant that doesn't allow you to do your job or tries to step on everything you do, what's going to happen to you? You're going to say, well, why do I even bother? If all they want is to report and put it on a shelf, I can do that too. But I never had that. I never wanted that. And I was always very lucky. I had the sergeant that would motivate your ass. Okay. Have you done this? Why haven't you done that? When are you going to do this? Or let's go do this. You know, if I did slow down, have a bad day or a slow day, you know, he was right there to say, no, let's go. You're here for a reason. This to me, homicide, they say it's God's work. Well, it is. Because who else is speaking, right? Who's speaking for the victim, if not you? Okay. You guys know. And if you're not going to do it, why do you want to be a homicide detective? And nothing frustrated me more than seeing somebody. You can be in any other position on the department and be a slacker. But if you decide you want to be a homicide detective, don't come there and be a slacker. That's the last goddamn job you need to slack off on. But again, you know, people got appointed there that maybe didn't belong there or got there, got burnt out or didn't want to be there, whatever. You guys see it all. So, anyway, so I get the homicide.
Some guys just want to flash the pinky ring, you know?
Well, that was it. Put the badge on, says homicide or resume builder. Spend a year there and leave, say, well, I was a homicide detective in Miami-Dade. Because that carries a lot of weight throughout your life. I'm in homicide a month or two. My first case, Martin Luther King Day. And if it's in New York like it is in Miami, they have a big parade. Everybody comes out. They get the day off. It's in the inner city and everybody's partying. On this particular day, myself and my other partner, Mike Hernandez, were doing an area canvas on a murder we got the night before. So while we're doing the area canvas, we hear gunfire. We hear the shots. The radio call, 911 call goes out. We're around the block from it. We respond to the location. It's a 5-year-old black girl who gets shot in the head. She dies on the scene. Our squad gets the case. So Tony, who was a sergeant, they all assemble, and of course we do our investigation. We got thousands of people out there milling around. I heard the gunfire, but what do you get? Nobody sees anything, right? I'm sure you guys have seen that, right? You get on a scene, they say, well, you're the detective, you find out, that kind of shit, right? Yeah. Nobody knows anything. So we start working the case, and we do start to get some information that comes in, and we get 2 names. So the next day we go out and we pick up these 2. We got nothing. We got nothing but a couple names. Maybe they may have been involved, maybe not. So my sergeant comes to me and says, Jeff, you take this guy. He may be the shooter. And to the lead detective, he gives him the other guy. And then, of course, the squad does all the runaround work. Well, I'm in the office. Now, I consider myself to be a pretty good interviewer and interrogator. But when you interview thousands of people throughout your life in robbery, that's just second nature. And I always tell everybody I train, I said, interview everybody as much as you can. Witnesses, people, just talk to people, right? Get the flow. And then definitely go in and watch interrogations. But anytime you get a chance to interview somebody, do it. So I did that. So I sit down with this knucklehead, and I'm in there for about an hour with him. And I got nothing, man. I mean, I got shit, and he knows it. But just talking to him, I ended up copping him out. He says, yep, you know what? Let me tell you what happened. We were having a fight with this group over there. While we're having a fight, I see a guy across the street. He pulls a gun. He aims it at me. I pull my gun. I go to shoot him. I guess I shot the girl in the head. I didn't mean to. I says, okay. Now I got you. If he says nothing, that case is still open today, unless somebody comes forward and pins it on him, which wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So not only was I able to get the confession, but I was able to take the guy out, and he even did the reenactment for me. Showed me where he was standing, how he's holding the gun. The only thing I didn't get was the gun. So we ended up closing the case. The guy got 12 years because the prosecutor didn't want to go to trial. But that was my first major homicide. In homicide, we closed it, did a little bit of justice. Every year, what they do down there is they come out. They put her name's Rakai Isaac. They'll have a press conference, and it's twisted now where they say, don't shoot your guns in the air on New Year's Eve because this little girl will get killed again. They just brush off the murder. Now they blame it on stray bullets in the air on
Hey, Jeff, it's celebratory gunfire. Let them vent. It's okay. It's
Absolutely.
okay.
And if you've never been in Liberty City on New Year's Eve, holy shit. My first New Year's Eve, oh my God, you think you're in worse than Beirut or Afghanistan or anywhere in the Middle East. I'm telling you, it's nuts, man. And every cop knows you seek cover for about 10 minutes.
Well, so can I tell, and I want to hear the chat, Ron Layson, John, if you're still on, any of the guys still active. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, on New Year's Eve, which I worked in the detective squad on standby because we knew the shit was going to hit the fan, they called in all patrol units at 11:45, waited for the shots, and did not let them leave the command until 12:05 or 12:10.
Yeah,
or 00:10, 00:05 and 00:10.
Yeah, you got to give the rounds enough time to hit the ground.
That's right. No, because they knew you'd all be out there walking into. They'd have 10 fucking MOS involved shootings. It
really is. It's scary, is what it is. Now it's fireworks today, I guess.
And if you told so Juju's, if you're still listening, my mother, the sweet blessed woman that she was, I used to tell her these stories, Jeff, because she would read in the newspaper the capers that and she'd go, oh, Bedford-Stuyvesant. I see Bedford-Stuyvesant. Is that you? And I'd say, no, that's the 8-1. That's us, but it's a joining precinct. And then she but most of them were ours because the 8-1 was a little slower than the 7-9 was. And I go, yeah, Mom, and this is what happened. She was like, tell me what happened. I go, Mom, you don't want to hear it. No, I want to understand. I want to know what you do. And I would tell her, and she goes, oh, people don't behave like that. People don't do that. And so, like Juju, that's my mom. That's how I was raised. People don't do that. And then I learned that they do. So
well, you know what that is, and not necessarily for your mom, but in today's world, that's called the Netflix effect. Remember that case, Making of a Murderer, a few years ago? It came out and everybody said the guy was innocent because Netflix presented it in a way that he couldn't have killed that woman. That's what they do now. And these people, they believe that shit and they don't know the facts. And then you try to explain it to them, then you're lying. You're just a cop. So that's why you said he's guilty. Okay, well, I guess I disregard the evidence, but that's how that is today. But in continuing as being a homicide detective, one of the things, again, in Miami, things we had to deal with, Santeria. You guys familiar with Santeria?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Didn't see much of it in New York, but I saw it once or twice.
It was still is so bad. And the biggest problem with Santeria is that a lot of our crime scenes had like a throne set up, for lack of a better word, inside the house, right? And our Cuban cops wouldn't go in because they literally believe in that stuff. Then you get a little nervous, go, shit, maybe there's something to that, because you do something inside of a house where they got the Santeria set up with the skull and the cigar and the money and the big statues and all that kind of stuff. Then the next day something stupid happens to you. It's like, shit, I must have done something to disrupt that statue there, or whatever, the beads they wear. And it gets a little crazy. Yeah. That's also but you take that and that extends to our courthouse. If you go to the Miami-Dade courthouse on a Monday, you'll find dead chickens all over the place.
Yes.
Trials start on Mondays, right? Yeah. So now the family of the defendants, they'll sacrifice a chicken and drop the chicken off in front of the courthouse, hoping that'll help get their guy off. And the other thing, the good and the bad of it is a lot of these bad guys, a lot of these Cuban bad guys, they go to a Santeria priest to get a blessing before they do their crimes. Okay. Mm-hmm. A lot of the home invader robberies did that. We had a really sad case down there where an off-duty, I think it was North Miami Beach police officer, was doing security at a bank, and 4 or 5 guys went to rob the bank, get the lady coming out with the money. Well, they killed the cop. Mm. One of the guys had gone to a Santeria priest. That's the guy that closed the case. The priest called the police and, listen, this guy came to me. That's how we were able to close that case. And they wear, you can always tell a Santeria bad guy or anybody does that. If you look on their wrist, they'll have a beaded bracelet that'll be yellow and green. And that's their Santeria colors. White is what they wear, but that green and yellow. So I learned a lot about Santeria, not to mess with the statues or anything like that, or the cigar, or the money, or the handcuffs, and then of course they sacrifice the animals, and you'll walk into a shed and there's a bunch of dead animals and shit. It's crazy. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's some crazy shit, because I didn't see that growing up in Columbus. But you learn about it, but you use that because now when you arrest somebody, if you can play off of that too a little bit with some of these guys, you can do that. Sure. And of course, most of the homicides that I handled were in the inner city. 90% of them were drug related, right? You guys, I'm sure it's way nationwide. Hard to solve, but I was fortunate enough to solve them. Then you get your domestic homicides. The husband shoots the wife. And in my opinion, those are the worst, because those husbands, they either tell you that they blacked out, or they just will never confess to killing their wife because they're cowards, right? And of course you have children involved, and you get a few of those. And then you get your robbery-related homicides. And one of my best stories, robbery, we get a 7-Eleven, and we get there. 2 guys did it. Well, the 7-Eleven clerk kills one of the bad guys. You get there, and there's this knucklehead lying on the ground, and he's clad in a mask, and he's got the dark uniform, the gloves, and the gun sitting beside him. And his buddy takes off and leaves him there to die, right? So we get the case, we get the guy identified, and now we got to do the next of kin, which next of kin, you guys know, is a whole bag of worms. That's a whole nother part of homicide. It's probably one of the hardest things to do. Mm-hmm. In this case, the squad went over, because now we don't know if the other bad guys at the house. So we knocked about 4 a.m. And of course you hear, who's there? Who's knocking on the door? And, oh, ma'am, it's the police. And they go, he's not here. Why are you always messing with my son? He's not. And for like 5 minutes, she's arguing with us, telling us, you're always fucking around my son. I said, ma'am, we need to talk to you. Can we open the door? And as she opens the door, we'll finally break the news. Well, ma'am, we're not going to mess with your son anymore, because he's been killed doing an armed robbery. Now, of course, what happens? You get that whole turnaround, right? Now you feel bad for the mom. We always feel bad for mom. But what do we want from mom? Who's he hanging with? Who's his homeboy, right? So now you got to bring it down, talk to her. Well, who was he with tonight? We want to do your son some justice here. Help us catch the bad guy. And 9 times out of 10, that's when you get the cooperation you need, because that guy left their son to die. and they want some payback for that shit.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be able to work that. So, but the worst homicides, aside from serial killer homicides, is a robbery homicide where you've got a homeowner, you've got a business owner, somebody just minding their own business, and somebody comes up to rob them, and for no goddamn reason at all, they shoot and kill the guy. The guy's already given you the property. He's not struggling. He's not fighting, but you just have to shoot him. That guy is going to go to prison on my watch, and they did. And I had one school teacher, 30 years. Every Sunday after Miami-Dade Community College professor, go have 2 beers at the local bar on 7th Avenue. Well, this particular Sunday, he wasn't aware of the predators that go out every day. And this is what I found out when I arrested the bastards. They go hunting for white people to rob them. And they're on a spree. And they see my victim getting into a car as he's leaving the bar. And they shoot him twice and kill him. I had no idea who these guys were. You get that crime. Now, you're going to love this. Get the Crime Stoppers call. Get 2 names. Let's get 2 names. But they're both sitting in Dade County Jail because they'd been arrested for armed robbery in North Miami Beach. So we split up. Me and my partner go to TGK. The others go to Dade County Jail or Metro West. We're going to pull these guys out. Well, my luck, I get the black female sergeant who wants to play public defender. The kid is 16 years old, but he's been adjudicated as an adult. He's sitting in the jail, and I need to talk to him. Well, you know what, detective? You can't do that. Why not? He's only 16. Well, he's been adjudicated as an adult. That means I can pull him out because he's an adult. No, you can't. So now I got to call the prosecutor, who has to call the jail prosecutor. I got it for an hour. They got to argue. Well, finally, they tell her, bring the guy to the detective, right? Which is bullshit that I had to go through that. So it gets better. She brings him down into the office there where her office is. And I get him. And the kid's being cooperative. He could have said, no, go screw yourself. He didn't. As she gives him to me, the phone in the office rings, and she picks it up and says, here, it's for you, detective. Hello. Hello, this is so-and-so from the public defender's office. I understand you want to talk to my client. I said, listen, I don't know who you are. You're a voice on the phone. If you're representing your client as you say you are, you can meet him at the homicide office. I'm done.
Right.
And I hung the phone.
That's right.
Sergeant had called the public defender's office on behalf of this guy, the killer, right?
Wow.
So anyhow, I take the guy back to the office. They get the other guy back. I cop the son of a bitch out. I get a confession from him. Tells me the whole story, gives me everything. The other guy wouldn't cop out to anything. I take him back. And I run this by my sergeant. She did the same shit with a robbery detective like a month before. So I go to the prosecutor. I said, can't we arrest her for obstructing? Because I'd really like to cuff her up. If she'd have kept that guy in the jail, we never would have closed this homicide, at least this way. And who knows how it would have gotten closed. I don't know. But she tried to obstruct my murder investigation. And initially, they were all for it. And then politics came into play. And guess what happened?
Yeah.
Not a damn thing. We come to find out a week before for a gun charge. So she hated, for whatever reason, she hated the police. She really hated the police, you know. But that was a case that we like to solve. Now,
as we learned, not everyone who wears a uniform and collects a paycheck from a police department is a cop. We see that in the current New York City mayor, as a matter of fact. There's a guy who I would argue was not a cop. But yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate, Jeff. But
and along those lines, I couldn't tell you how many of my friends who were police officers got arrested for stupid shit, stealing, doing drugs, selling drugs, buying drugs. Don't get me into the River Cops case. But I wanted to take it a little further. The other job, when you're a homicide detective, aside from the homicides, we do death investigations. And obviously the hardest cases are suicides, especially young people that commit suicides or drug overdoses or whatever. Because first of all, the family never wants to believe that it was a suicide, especially if there was somebody else in the room. And I understand that, and that's tough. And I've had those cases. But the worst of the worst is when a police officer commits suicide and it's your case. And that is the toughest and that is the hardest because what are you going to do? You know, because we never know why. And I had one, more than one, but one New Year's Eve. I'm always lucky on holidays. New Year's Eve, this guy, he was a state trooper, crosses over to become a Miami-Dade cop, only been on the job a few months. He gets drunk, goes to see his girlfriend, doesn't tell his wife. She calls the police on him. The girlfriend does. As he leaves after he damaged her house, he drives back around, sees the cop car there. He's got his buddy in the car with him. Both of them are drunk as hell. His buddy is a state trooper, former Florida Gators defensive tackle, like 6'8" and 300 some pound guy. As my victim's driving away from the scene, while he's driving, he pulls his gun out and shoots himself in the mouth and kills himself while he's driving. And then, of course, his buddy has to pull the car over to the side of the road. And then when I get there, you know, this guy's like crying his eyes out. He's in shock. He doesn't know what to do. And then you got to make the notification on that case. Mm-hmm. And these are the things, that come with the territory, and we've all known somebody that may or may not have committed suicide. Unfortunately, I've had a few friends that have done that as well that I didn't handle, but it just happens, or a natural death. We've had guys I work with have heart attacks at work. And of course it's in our jurisdiction. We got to go to that house and do the scene on a guy you work with.
Yep.
Okay. That's some hard shit to deal with, and we've all done it. If you're a homicide detective, I don't care where you're at in the country, you do it. And you tuck it away, you pack it away, and you go have a few beers and you move on. But those are the things we never forget. And a lot of people, when you think homicide, you think just the murders, right, that are being committed and working that. You don't think, and the tragic accidental deaths. And I would never be a traffic homicide guy because that's the worst of the worst. You can have that shit. If somebody falls off a building or commits suicide jumping or gets electrocuted or whatever, I can do that. Don't give me the traffic accidents because who's involved in those. I don't want nothing to do with that shit.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was some of the cases in my career. And like I said, it ended on a high note because I was assigned to a task force called Perfect Storm again with Stephanie that I work with. And our HIDA guys, our stop guys, who Pete, you're familiar with the stop.
Yeah, great team. Even
all the guys, right. And they're top notch. And we worked on the Haitian gang thing. We closed that out as I left. The other thing I meant to say in HIDA, you guys familiar with HIDA, right?
Yes.
When HIDA started.
So for the audience, we have a lot of New York guys. There's the Intel and the New York HIDA inside the NYPD, but HIDA for the New York folks, especially high intensity drug trafficking areas, big offices all around the country. And I would argue, and I let you guys comment, that Miami's is probably one of the best, if not the best HIDA in the country.
Yeah, and at ATF, we had two separate groups. One was HIDA North, HIDA South. One was based in Broward County. The other was based in Miami. By far, and I hate to say this because I don't want to, make the other people that I supervise feel bad, but by far our most hardcore group, and they specialized in home invasion robbery investigations while I was down there. They would do stings where they had a location set up. I can't get too much information. They get these home invaders caught up in conversations, lure them to a location, and then take them down with a SWAT team. And these were some really, really bad people. So, but yeah, I mean, it's run by ONDCP nationally, and there's several different regions. But in Miami, they are big and they are active. It's they're not just like a little intel unit somewhere like in some parts of the country. They are out there running and gunning. So yeah, Jeff, you have a lot more experience.
That HIDA started in 1992, and we were one of the first folks to get involved in it because we were on a task force targeting jewelry store robbers, where these guys would dress up like women, put the wigs on, and go hit stores like Service Merchandise and Luria's, and walk in there with the sledgehammers and swarm it like you see today, and smash the counters and steal all this jewelry. And they did this for like 5 or 6 years before, again, Tony says, you know what, we need to do something about this. So we put together a task force, and it just coincided with HIDA just getting started. So they brought us in, and man, did they have some money. I mean, more money than they knew what to do with. I mean, I was driving a freaking Cadillac as a rental car. We had 3 Cadillacs, a brand new Camaro, and a Volvo that they said, go rent it. And a guy named John Minahan, who was an ATF agent, was running it. And John would dole out the money to my sergeant. When you went to pay for a rental car, it was like he'd give you a stack of money every month. Go pay for it. It wasn't a credit card. It was cash. They bought us computers and radios and flashlights. They couldn't spend the money fast enough. But we gave them stats, because not only did we give them the robbery investigation that we successfully closed federally, we worked with the FBI on that. But every time we made a drug arrest or a gun arrest in the Goulds area in the South End, because that's where these guys came from, we gave that stat to HIDA. So we were one of the initial groups to start building the stats and showing that it was a worthwhile project alone. And then later on in the years, I guess it split to where it went up to Broward as well. But, out of HIDA came the gun squad. Before I left, they formed a gun squad in there. The stop unit was formed.
Street terror offender program.
That was initially put together to target police impersonators that were doing the home invasions. When I was in robbery, I had a case where one of the guys I arrested dressed up as a cop. We caught him. 911 call came in. Our units responded, got him in the house, brought him back to the robbery office in his police uniform. I had 2 or 3 of those cases prior to that, so I took the lead on it and charged him with it. And I was pissed, man. I was pissed. You're out there as a police officer doing this shit. You're making it dangerous for me as a police officer and other police officers by acting like a fool. And so I locked him up. He was looking at literally at 3 life sentences. Well, I get a call from him one day from the Dade County Jail. He said he wanted to cooperate. Sorry, Cuban guy. I go over and I talk to him. He had me a 5-page list of things he could do, and he said he could set up home invaders. So I got with the prosecutor, literally got him out of jail, put him to work. We probably arrested 30 or 40 people, because this is the guy that would stand in the line at the Home Depot and recruit guys out of Goulds to go do home invasion robberies. The marshals gave us a house in the Redlands. We worked with every other time we would do it. One time we'd use our SWAT team. One time we'd use ATF SWAT team. And it was always, we called him Jesse. He used his car. He put these guys with their guns in his car and drive to the house to do the robbery. We put the sham inside the house, the fake dope and all that crap, record it, and arrest these guys. And we were knocking them down. And then, like I told you earlier, Pete, we had the shootout where an ATF agent got shot. 4 knuckleheads came out with guns, all armed with guns. They about killed my snitch. They shot his car up and almost killed me and my partner who were on the perimeter. The ATF agent we were with had the shield, so we all lined up behind his shield. His gun jammed. I had to give him my 38. It was crazy. 100 rounds fired by ATF. Fortunately, Scott suffered a minor gunshot wound, but still, he could have got killed. It was crazy. And we locked those guys up. Well, after that, everybody became a little bit gun shy, because we'd done probably 20 or 30 of those up to that time where we set those things up with that one snitch, with my snitch, who was able to stay out of prison because of what he did, plus the other stuff that he did. I mean, he's probably the best source I ever had. They eventually called him Jesse the Entrapper. The prosecutor started thinking, well, you might be overstepping you. By the time I was in homicide, I was done with him. I think Carlos was working with him by then or whatever. But that was, again, through HIDA and ATF, which enabled us to do that kind of stuff. And I think they bought a backhoe. I mean, they just couldn't spend the money that was coming in there to fund. But you needed it because of all the robberies and all the drugs and everything else. I think it was 1 of 5 areas in the country that they got that HIDA money. Mm-hmm. And again, on my way out the door, was when I worked with Stephanie, who was in stop. I'm sorry, Stephanie was prior to that, but with Joe and Teresa, they were actually on the agent side for the Haitians. Stephanie was in stop when I did another chasing robbers down with guns and shit. But man, I had a ball. I worked with probably every federal agency in Miami: FBI, DEA, ATF, Secret Service, because of Sack's daughter got robbed when I was working. I had her case. I had to solve that one, and you've never had a robbery case, a strong arm robbery, where everywhere you go, you got 6 Secret Service guys get there before you do. In the ghetto. Working at. Listen, can you do me a favor? I don't care, but let me know what you're doing, number one, and let me go with you. If you got some information, well, our boss, I said, we'll solve. And eventually I solved the case, got the guy that did it. But here's a funny story. The kid I arrested was a black kid from Carroll City, skinny little guy. He gives me a full confession on tape. Secret Service picked him up and brought him to their damn office. I didn't even get a chance to pick the guy up. I get a confession. We go to trial. He robbed 4 women off of Key Biscayne, took all their jewelry and shit. Go to trial. The jury comes back not guilty. What do you mean not guilty? I confessed. Well, prosecutor pulls a jury. The government, the defense attorney's argument was the United States government was against my client, this kid from the inner city. Look at all these agents. They felt sorry for him because of the Secret Service, because they were everywhere. And he made a big deal out of the Secret Service, doing what they should have been doing, helping me out. But because it was the big footstep of the federal government on this poor black kid, they let him go. Walked him out the door. Oh, I was so pissed.
Sounds like the Bronx.
Bronx. I was going to say the same exact thing. Yeah. Same exact thing.
Oh, but Jeff, so you said that was the tail end of your career, man. But you, after leaving policing as a sworn member of the department, you're still doing God's work.
So here's how this, you guys will appreciate this. When you're in Miami, in the Miami-Dade Police Department, we have a union. It's the PBA. Mm-hmm. You guys have the FOP, I believe.
Well, New York has a PBA, SBA.
You guys have a bunch of them. So the guy that's standing between the 2 women, not Lino, who's in the back, who's an NYPD guy, but the guy with the vest on, his name's Arnie Amoroso. Arnie and Lino and Lou Morales to the left are all retired NYPD guys. Well, they're part of the local Orlando FOP Lodge 176 here in my neighbor in Claremont in Orlando. So another retired NYPD guy, Dennis Molina, who lives in my neighborhood, said, Jeff, you want to come to an FOP meeting? I said, FOP? I'm PBA, man. What the fuck do I want to do with FOP? Nah, come to the meeting. So I get there. It's like 90% retired. And I swear all you guys moved to Florida, moved down here. Anyhow, 90% of the guys are Florida guys.
Sixth borough. It's the sixth borough.
NYPD from everywhere. And it's funny because every time we have a meeting, even today, we'll get a new guy in. And the next thing you know, the guy from across from say, hey, I worked with you in this precinct or that precinct. And they go, oh, you bastard, shut the fuck up. Anyhow, Arnie comes to me after about a year or so being with the FOP, says, listen, Arnie, when he retired from NYPD, came down and became a Seminole County sheriff. So he knew the sheriff very well. And he says, I'm thinking of starting a volunteer cold case squad. Would you be interested? I said, sure, why not? I got nothing to do, I guess. So he puts this thing together, gets the sheriff to okay it, and we go down there one day. He calls up, says, come on down, we're going to get sworn in. So there's probably 3 or 4 more guys that aren't in this picture. A guy named Rambo, who's a retired NYPD guy, and a few other guys. So we all get sworn in. And the deal is we're going to help Seminole County work their cold case squad, work their cold cases. So this is always a touchy thing. I'd done this before this with Alachua County because Tony, man, he gets me in more shit. He was doing this with Alachua County, but on a DNA grant where he was getting paid money. I just retired, and he asked me if I wanted to help him do that. I said, sure, because I got paid to do that. These are all the guys, all these black guy. I don't know if that's Rodney or his brother Daryl. They're both from NYPD. They were twins, homicide guys up in New York.
They probably cover for each other.
They probably did. Great guys. Pete, NYPD. Everybody's freaking PD. So this was the day we had to come in. We had to get our training on driving the police cars because they'd let us drive an unmarked car. So.
Yes, get back to building the case.
The thing is, if somebody walks into we call it your house, for lack of a better word, from the outside, and they say, listen, we're here to help you work your cold case squad murders or your murders, you're going to be like, what the fuck are you? Why are you here? We don't need you and we don't want you, which is what I would do, right? So I dealt with that in Alachua County. But I learned how to do, again, remember what I said at the beginning, you got to talk to people, man. You got to, it ain't me, it's you. It's all about you. I'm here to help you be about you, which is what I did in Alachua County. And man, we were going to close some cases. Boy, we had some great cases. but they had a guy that got pissed off in their evidence room and burned all their evidence for all these murders. So we couldn't do anything with that shit, which really pissed me off. So anyhow, fast forward. We run into kind of the same situation in Seminole County where it wasn't an outright, we don't want you here, but it was subtle. And the captain, the lieutenant, the cold shoulder, the cold case detective, a little bit, sometimes cold shoulder, sometimes warm or whatever. And so and now we're dealing with, it ain't just me. It's all these loud New York guys. And, and we started this about 6 years ago. And since then, we've outlasted the captain, we've outlasted the lieutenant, we've outlasted that cold case detective, now 2 cold case detectives, and probably 3 or 4 other detectives who have either got promoted, resigned, retired, quit, whatever. We're down to like 4 or 5 of us, me and Arnie, the 2 twins, my partner Steve, but we're getting old, so we all have health problems. We all have health issues, so Steve can't do it as much. Of course, doctor's appointments and all that stuff. Well, we've closed about 3 or 4 cases, cleared a couple, and we've got a couple more. One is a 12-year-old girl that got kidnapped and murdered in 1980 that we're really looking at hard, that we hope to close that, and some other cases. And to me, we do it twice a week. And I tell people, I said, listen, there's nothing better than taking a cold case homicide off the shelf that hasn't been looked at in years, and you're the one that's going to open it up and start looking at it. That's better than a book. It's better than a movie. It's better than anything you can imagine, if that's what you like to do. Mm-hmm. And now you're reading reports, and the best part of it, you're reading the notes, and you're seeing what these detectives did back then. And you got,
yep.
And what's fascinating and what's really, really neat for me is to see, damn, these guys busted their ass. I mean, they did everything they could possibly do. I mean, there's some of these binders are 5 binders big, I mean, they put their heart and soul into these things. They just couldn't close it. And then you get some others where you go, well, I wish you would have done that. Or you could have done that. Maybe you should have done that. But that's part of the cold case thing, man.
Yes. Sir.
And the first case we had that we closed, 15 of our potential witnesses were dead. Yep. 3 of them got hit by a damn train because it was a homeless,
together.
No, separately, but it was a homeless related murder. So what do you get? Everybody's homeless, drug addicts, alcoholics. So through the years, and this guy we think committed 3 murders. One in Colorado where he moved to after he left Florida, the one in Florida, and we think he killed his mom up in Georgia. And we're putting it all together. We're ready to get a warrant for the case down here. We've been working this thing for about a year or 2. And Arnie finds out he gets a call from Colorado because we made contacts with the detectives out there. Well, we got some good news and some bad news. Well, what's the good news? Your guy's dead. The guy was doing a shoplifting in a 7-Eleven. He ran out and was chased by the clerk, and he ran into a car in traffic and got run over and killed.
Well, New York, we'd be jubilating. I mean, hey, it's an exceptional clearance.
Well, that's it. That's what we did. We cleared the one out there, the one here. We're trying to clear the one where he killed his mom, but we're having a problem with the detectives on, and not that they're a problem, just trying to get them to maybe finagle a little bit. But that's part of the deal. Listen, I do a class on cold case murders, what to look for, what to expect, what the pitfalls are, and all that stuff. And once you figure out how to deal with all that, you just trudge on, man. You can't look back. You got to always look forward, because you can't change what happened in the past. You can only change what you're going to do looking ahead. And it's fun. It's interesting. It's exciting.
I got to ask a question, Jeff, because we see the culture of law enforcement right now. And look, I love the profession, but I don't love the way it's portrayed, in certain areas. So actually, it's going to be 2 questions. Number one is, you weren't a cop in that county, and then you got a bunch of New Yorkers. And I saw what happened to being a New Yorker when I went to different places. Some people just don't like New Yorkers. Florida is in the South, if I am not mistaken. So my question would be, how are you folks taken by the prosecutors who sometimes don't like the cops that are actually employed there? And here you guys are, outsiders, volunteers. Like, what's the relationship been like with the prosecutors' offices?
It's tough, because we ran into that situation on a case we did eventually close, because the prosecutor, I would say the prosecutor actually looked at us more as outsiders than the detectives did.
Sure, I would think.
Not initially, but they did. So the way we figured out how to deal with that, let the active lead detective deal with the prosecutor. Now, if you need me to come in, explain my side of the story, fine. That's all fine and dandy. But the less they deal with us, the better it is, because they've already established that relationship with their detectives, that they do all their murder. And they don't get a lot of murders in Seminole County, but they deal with the other crime. That's the other problem with that kind of detective bureau. You're doing murders, you're doing rapes, you're doing robberies, you're doing shootings. So you got to spread yourself thin, so that when you do get that murder, it's kind of tough to concentrate on that, because you're doing that, and then tomorrow some other shit comes in. You got to pull yourself away from the murder, which is never a good thing. But the prosecutors that they deal with handle all those cases with them, so they have that relationship. And we just kind of bite up. Initially we thought, let's deal with the prosecutors, this and that, and we found out that ain't going to work. It's just human nature on their part. That's their problem. That ain't my problem. You're not going to keep me from doing what I need to do to close the case. And we did close a case, and it was a good one, where a guy got murdered in his front door. And that case was open for years, and we closed that case. And the prosecutor, but when presented with the facts, he had to do his job.
Sure.
Sometimes they have to.
Have you heard of other entities like what you? I think what you guys are doing is great. It's noble, and there's no more noble thing than speaking out for the dead. I truly believe that. But are you aware of other entities like yours operating anywhere else in the country? I mean, is that a trend, do you think? I mean,
I'll tell you, it's interesting, because the few times that I'll put something like that on the LinkedIn, and if you ever go back and read some of my posts, you'll see how many people from across the country, from forensics, from crime scene, retired detectives, man, we'd really like to help you. We'd like to do that. We'd like to set that up where we're at and get something like that going. But I have heard of a few other locations I don't know where, I can't tell you exactly where I think they do something like this. Not to the extent, I don't think that we did it, but what enabled us to do this is the sheriff, because the sheriff runs his own, he's not elected, he's not appointed, he's elected to that position. So it's his call as to whether or not he's going to allow it to happen. And if he does allow it, he calls the shots. He doesn't have to worry about any outside agitation, because he's the sheriff. That makes it work. Now, it could work anywhere if somebody said, listen, we could use some help. And again, the agency, number one, has to be on board with it. And again, the detectives, you're going to, if I'm in the Miami-Dade Bureau homicide section, and the lieutenant walks in and says, hey, listen, everybody, we're talking about having some volunteers come in and help you guys out. Well, the first thing I'm going to ask is, who you're going to have come in.
Right.
And if they say, well, the guys that just retired out of here a couple of years ago, by all means, do it. Come on in. But if you say, well, we got some guys from
New York,
New York, or LA, or wherever, you go, I don't know. Maybe we'll do it on a trial basis. And if it works, it works. And I think it can work anywhere, because the bottom line is, if you got homicide in your blood.
No, but look, the beauty of this thing, and I'm looking at it, like I said, I was an executive in law enforcement for a while, and one of the things that scared me was brain drain, right? Because it's not like when I came on the job, you had people that were detectives I worked with that were there for 35. I worked with guys who were around in the Serpico days when I went to the 405 squad, for example. I mean, just to be able to pull that knowledge from them was such a gift. And now it's hard to find people that are on the job past 20 years. So, I mean, as someone who led an organization, it's like, how do you get that knowledge back? You can't get it back once they retire. But if you can employ a program like what you're doing and bring that knowledge in with volunteers, I think that's great. And then, like, we had a previous guest, Pete Mangan, who was a former ATF. He wasn't an agent with ATF. Before that, he was a DC Metro cop. He's currently volunteering with the homicide squad in Montgomery County, Maryland, which I think is great, because, look, Pete's closing in on 80. He still wants to give to the community. He can't be a sworn officer anywhere. But, I mean, shit, I learned a ton from Pete, and I had 35 years experience. When I left, I still learned from Pete. So it's just, I think it's a great program. It's just, how do you replicate this elsewhere without upsetting that delicate balance, I think is, because I do agree, there are challenges to what you do if you were to try to do that in other departments. You seem to have broken the ice there, but,
Okay, so go ahead, Jeff.
real quick, as an aside, some of the best phone calls that I've made doing this job is calling that retired detective that handled the case 20 years
Oh
ago.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Holy shit,
did
man!
that all the time.
And those guys are sharp. They remember a lot of stuff. We bring them in and sit them down, go over the file. I mean, there's nothing better than getting that original detective.
I'll even go one step further. I bet you might have even had one or two of them say, "I might have some notes sitting around somewhere."
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, and here's a quick story about that, because it happened in this 12-year-old girl that got kidnapped and murdered back in 1980. There's a place called Montverde, Florida. Okay, if you follow college basketball, just about every major basketball star has come out of this high school, Montverde High School. They go to Duke, Kentucky, all over the damn place. Anyhow, the incident occurred in Montverde. They had one guy who was the sheriff of Montverde back when that occurred. His name was Jim Manna. So Jim Manna is like almost 90 years old. So we go to his house to interview him, and sharp as a tack. But he said, listen, I got a box in my house with reports from that case. He says, I don't know where it's at right now, but I'll find it and I'll give you guys a call. I said, great. We want to see it. Well, a month or two goes by, and I went to his house a couple times. He wasn't home. One day we're there, we run into a friend of his, and we say, hey, listen, we were here. Jim said he said, listen, Jim has been moved from the house to an assisted living facility. He's never coming back. They said, he's okay. He's alive. But I said, shit. Okay. I said, well, listen, this is what he told us. Can you ask him if we can look in his house for the file? He said, let me get back. Well, last week or 2 weeks ago, we got the okay. Me and the New York guys, the twins, we go to this guy's house. And first of all, you always feel weird going into somebody's house, especially somebody's not a criminal, So we go in there and we did the grid search room by room. And there's no air conditioning because that's turned off. The house is disheveled, the shit that you look for and go through the dead bugs and all that crap. Well, we hit every room, pulled every drawer, looked everywhere. Could not find this box, man. Now, did he throw it away? Did he maybe not have it and forgot he had it? I don't know. But we did have to follow up on it because, again, you don't know if we do find that file, what might be in the file that can help us close the case. So we did go that extra mile to try to do that. And, of course, we felt bad for him, but he's actually his friend who helped us is the mayor of Mount Verde today. And thank God he's looking out for Jim. But, there's a lot of twists and turns. And listen, it's like being a cop, man, especially when you get to go to the scene. Okay, this happened 30 years. I don't care. I'm going. I want to see what it looked like. Car, police car, you got the radio going. Shit, man, this is all right. You go to the scene, you check it out, you knock on doors, you interview people. You're kind of like back in the saddle again. We don't make arrests. I don't want to make an arrest. We'll put it together. You get the warrant. You make the arrest. You want us to go with you, we'll go. Otherwise, you go do what you got to do to make the arrest. If you want us to sit in and do the interview, we'll do it. We'll help you. But once you get to the point where an arrest is going to be made, you give it up or give it off to the lead detective. And then whatever he needs from you, you give to him. And again, it's not stepping on toes. It's helping. And now we've been there long enough now that we're on first name basis with everybody. We get along with everybody. Like I said, the biggest problem is the good folks are leaving now. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. It takes me an hour to get there, an hour to come home. It's 50-mile drive. It's wear and tear on my car. Like today, I was supposed to go in, but I got back from Columbus last night. So I'm not going in today. I'll go in Thursday. And so but I love it. I enjoy it. And I want to close at least one or two more before I'm done and maybe hand it off to somebody else. And it's all because of those damn New York guys.
Well, all right. So Pete, let me jump in here. I got a whole bunch of cold case commentary from Jeff's dump on all of this stuff. A lot of really good stuff. So that's one thing I want the listeners to understand that. And I told people on a previous episode that Butch Nisi, my captain, and I were reading a case of a judge who was abducted and probably obviously killed in the 20s in New York City and probably buried under the Coney Island board, where now stands the Coney Island Boardwalk. And we were reading that case and pulling up information and talking about an exhumation and everything. And we were like, we just, at one point, like, it was like, we just looked at each other and looked up and go, they're paying us to do this? We would do this for free. And so Jeff,
Right.
I appreciate what you're saying in the sense of we did our careers, we've got all this experience. I would still do this forever, which then leads me into the second thing. So I moved from New York City to Albemarle County, Virginia. For those of you who don't know, it's Central Virginia, where the University of Virginia sits. It's a 50,000 population city. The county is about 110, 112,000. We have four law enforcement agencies. We have 3 police departments. We have the University Police, very service oriented, although they've had their shit with the triple murder of the 3 football players. We have an abduction and a rape and a serial killer from a University of Virginia JPJ arena. So the university has had their share. Then we have the city, and then we have the county. And the county, a former Fairfax chief by the name of Steve Sellers, a complete gentleman, calls me up. He finds out I moved into town. He knows who I am. Believe it or not, a transit cop that I worked with in 1986 became a Fairfax County cop and then retired as a lieutenant. And he's like, "Oh, you got some New Yorker moving into your town, chief." And he's like, "You need to talk to him." And he brings me in as a VIP, a volunteer incentive program or whatever you want to call it. And they give me a 1963 homicide. And let me just say, I was the only VIP doing this. And 6 months later, I read the case. I gave my assessment. They said thank you, and they never asked me to come back ever again.
Well, okay. Now here's a problem.
You know?
Here's the problem you run into.
Oh, of course.
Because some of these cases, when you do review them, and remember I told you a lot of these guys do a great case, man. Bang up. Those are the guys that say, if somebody in my family got, I'd want that.
This was a cover-up, by the way. This was a cover-up.
Okay. Well, so now take that. It's
Yep.
a cover-up.
It's even worse. Yep. It's even worse.
Which is always worse, as opposed to
Yeah.
a case where it was such a shitty job, if you get one, okay,
Yep.
that you've got to rehabilitate it. And there may be a little bit of, well, geez, do we want the backlash if we close it? Because they're going to say, well, how come this wasn't done? And how come they didn't do it back then? Now somebody has to explain that stuff.
That's
and
right.
so then it becomes political. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All shit's political one way or another. So sometimes you got to worry about it. That hasn't happened in Seminole County. Okay. But I do know of cases where it's happening right now with a case I was on in Miami-Dade County where a Miami Hurricane player got killed back in 2007 or 8, and things weren't done. And now they made an arrest years later. And now they're in the middle of suppression hearings. And the cold case guy, a friend of mine, who handled the homicide of Sean Taylor, Washington Redskins football player years ago. Okay. Juan's catching hell for shit that wasn't done back then. Okay.
Yep.
But an arrest is made, and the Miami Herald's on it. It's getting a lot of news coverage. It doesn't look good for the Miami-Dade Police Department. Now the sheriff's office. Fortunately, they got some great cold case guys on it that are able to put it together and piece it together, and it'll probably go to trial. I don't know if I'm going to get called for that trial or not. In probably another month or two. So those are the things that can happen. That's the downfall of taking that dusty case and opening it up and looking at it. Shit. Well, do we really want to? Because now we got to do this. Property's missing, evidence isn't there. Things that are happening that if you close it, you got to explain that shit.
Yeah,
that's right.
When I was in the Bronx Homicide Task Force, they had 35 detectives. 10 of them, I would argue, should not have been homicide detectives. 5 of them, I would argue, should have never been ever even brought into the detective bureau or even been cops. So I get it, and yeah, they caught cases. Wouldn't want them catching anything.
They all catch cases. That's the problem. They're going to catch a case. The good, the bad, the ugly. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
And as long as they're there,
All
you're
right.
going to do something.
So, guys, we are on 2 hours. Guess what, guys? We are at 438 live viewers. Steady climb all the way. Not one drop all night. 440. 438 to 440 while I'm talking. So, Jeff, kudos to you. You got a good audience tonight. We're 2 hours in. Let's do some wrap-up kind of stuff. Like, I have a whole bunch of pictures. So let me do some pictures and just quick commentary. Because there's some really good ones. There's some really good. I love the old ones too, right? So we saw this one.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Before we do that, real quick, can I just mention our homicide conference that's coming up?
No, let's do that at the end. We'll definitely give you the plug. We'll definitely do that. Yeah, let's do your career, then the conference. We want to tell everyone about it. We've heard great things about it for sure. It was already on my mind. Okay. So this one, did we see this one before? Yeah.
This is 1981 Central District. This day we're working Saturday evening, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. The man on the far left was a sergeant. He brought his camera in. The guy standing next to him, Barry, had to shoot and kill a Marilito one night on a traffic stop where the guy got out with a gun, was pointing it at Barry, chasing around the car. Barry shot and killed him. Turned out the bad guy's gun was unloaded. Debbie and Joey Trombetta from New York. He left the department, went back. And then there's a couple that are deceased. Andy and Dave and Eileen are all deceased. Jean lives in Georgia, and I'm with my arm cocked up, getting ready to go out on Saturday night. And let me tell you something, nothing better than going out to work on a Saturday evening at 6 o'clock in Liberty City on a Saturday night, man. It was, and then at the end of the shift, we got off at 2. We worked near an Amtrak station. Somebody make a beer run, and then for the next hour or two, you have some beers and talk about the shit you did during the shift. Couldn't beat it.
That's right. Well, that's why we're called the 10-4 Tavern, because we're at the bar having beers, talking about the shit you did. But let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Did you ever want to take a day off?
Hell no.
FOMO, baby. Fear of missing out.
Hey, listen, you take a day off, you missed the good shit.
All right, what's this?
Okay, this is part of the homicide conference. Bobby Miller in the middle. He's the vice president. He's my partner in homicide. Retired now, works as security for Carnival Cruise Lines. So if you have any problem with Carnival, give Bobby a call. Arnie is to his left. Arnie is the New Yorker who set everything up on the cold case squad. We brought him in. He's an advisory board member now because Arnie's like the mayor, man. He knows everybody. In New York, in Miami, in Osceola, everywhere. Arnie knows everybody. And then that's me standing there.
Yeah. Hey, audience. Sorry, watchers and listeners. No particular order on these photos. The shooting we saw. That's a cute one. Jeff,
this case really here, these were home invaders from New York City that came down to Miami, and we did a search of their apartment, and we found that badge. They were police impersonators. This was probably 1985, 86.
Yep. Yeah, that one.
Street sweeper.
I pulled one of the things I did in robbery. I didn't sit in the office. If I wasn't handling a case, I was out doing traffic stops, messing with people standing around, find out who's who, because I need to know who my robbers are. This was taken off a guy on a traffic stop. I probably pulled more freaking guns like this off the Tech 9s, the revolvers. This was just a street sweeper that I took off the street.
So that one. So this is kind of representative of your little cold case squad. I put that together.
Right.
See, I was a detective. I know.
Yep, those are the cold case badges. And the one you don't recognize, Postal Service.
Yeah.
Oh, the Fed one. Yeah. The Postal Service. You know what? I had a lot of good
organization, man. Let me tell you, that is a
let me tell you.
Organization.
And a guy that Sam is his name. He's our current FOP president, but Sam was the president of about 30,000 people recently, part of this organization that he's part of, the fraud and all that kind of stuff. Sam's a great guy.
We saw that one. Oh, crime scene. We got a little skeletal remains.
Now this was there was a surveyor. Have you guys ever been to Joe Robbie Stadium or the football stadium in Miami to watch the Dolphins? Have you ever seen it on TV?
Yep.
Anyhow, when they first built the stadium, there was a lot of open area, and they were surveying it. They were going to build a hotel. Well, the surveyor is walking the fence line and finds a bone.
Yep.
He calls the police.
Yep.
Officer gets there and they call me, and then of course we search and we find, turns out to be a black female that had been missing. Wow. And so I got the case, put it together, got her identified, She was last seen at her job, disappeared. Some months later, we found, in Miami, bodies don't last long in the summertime, man. They start to decompose and disintegrate. Plus, you got the critters and the animals. And so this is what I ended up with. Had her jewelry, got her identified. I know it was her boyfriend that did it. Everything pointed to him, brought him into the office. This was a confession. I couldn't get him to confess to the murder, but the son of a bitch confessed to molesting her kids, which is why I think she found out. So I was able to get him arrested for that, but that's an open case. That one still sticks in my craw.
So what's the time frame on decomposition here?
In Miami, it depends on the time of the year and where they're at. If they're outside in the summertime, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days.
No, but I'm saying, this one from the time
here,
missing, time missing to the time found.
This was probably about a month.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's rapid.
That's fast. That's fast.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And the critters, they gnawed on it.
Yeah.
Too, so it's a combination.
Well, to the point of the critters is like, look at all of the bones that you found.
Right.
Like that. Usually they're scattered all over the place. So I'm even surprised you found that.
They were. Well, it was an open field area. I mean, we did a nice grid search.
You have cause of death. You have knife wounds or bullet wounds or anything on those bones?
Well, we think strangulation, but we couldn't prove it. Nothing.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
if that's the case, find it on that. Yep. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw that one. Oh, what's that?
This is the home invasion robbery sting that I was talking about, where Scott Adams got shot.
Yeah.
And we had 3 out of 4. One of them broke the perimeter during the shooting. So we were able to take those 3 into custody. And then later on that night, we got the 4th guy. And again, the house we used was a drug dealer's house seized by the marshals. So we worked it out where they would let us use their house to do these things away from everybody, so nobody else would get hurt or shot.
Yeah. So this is now where we get into what's better, New York or Miami. One of the things I remember you and I having a little chatter on LinkedIn was like, yes, we have Yankee Stadium. Yes, we have Shea Stadium. We have the Rangers, but the Islanders are on Long Island. The Jets and the Giants are now in New Jersey, so the New York City cops don't get it. And one of the things you said, of all the murder work, all the homicides, all the robberies, the cocaine cowboys, all that, but the Super Bowls too.
Loved it. I was able to work 4 of them from 1989 until the last one in 2010 when I retired. And each one was a different experience. You get basically, like on this particular one, let's see, this was, I think, the next to the last one, or this might have been the last one I worked. But you have carte blanche all over the stadium. I wasn't stationed in one location. I went up and down. The only place I wasn't able to go was actually on the field, but everywhere else. And the best part about working these Super Bowls is they have these areas set up for all the rich people, where they bring them in and they throw a party. They give them all the booze and the food, and they bring players in for autographs. I just waltzed into every one of those tents and got my autographs, got my free food, because they'd feed you. Hey, officer, you got to have something to eat. Yeah, I sure do. Whatever. And got to see that, get that the Super Bowl experience that I got, people would pay $30,000, $40,000 for.
More.
If not more. And
I always said, if you had the right job in New York City Police Department, you live like a millionaire making $50 a year.
The only thing I regret not doing.
Let me go back.
Okay.
No, I didn't want to jump. I clicked it back. Finish the Super Bowl.
That was one thing. The thing I didn't do was when the Marlins won the World Series. I think it was 2 years in a row, and I think they played the Yankees one year. I'm not sure. Did they play the Yankees for a World Series? No, Cleveland they played one year. But anyhow, I didn't work those World Series. I wish I would have worked one of those, because that would have been kind of neat. But I also got to work the college football national championship games, the Orange Bowl games. And I actually had an experience with O.J. Simpson in 2005 at the Orange Bowl national championship. University of Southern California was playing Oklahoma. Of course, O.J. played for Southern Cal. He was a Trojan. Right? Yep. So I'm working, and as I'm in my area, I see O.J. in the corridor, and there's a group of people around him. And I walk over there and I look, and he's signing autographs and people are taking pictures. shit, man, OJ's here. So I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. About the third quarter, I get a couple people come out and they grab me and said, listen, OJ's causing a problem in the stands. I said, great. So now I'm by myself. So OJ's sitting about halfway down with this asshole guy, Al Cowlings. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's the one that drove the damn Bronco.
Right.
Yep.
I'm walking down the steps and I'm walking towards him. OJ's watching the game. Well, Cowlings is standing up and he's got his back to the field and he's yelling at the crowd. I kind of don't blame him because what had happened was the crowd, once they got word that OJ was in their area, and now, of course, the crowd's drunk, they're starting to chuck water bottles at him. And they're starting to yell at him and say, we want you to leave. You got to go. You can't stay, right? So now I'm getting called to basically defend him and protect him from the crowd. So I go down there, and, of course, I say, Mr. Simpson, is everything else? He was actually very polite. He says, yeah, everything's okay. I said, is there anything you want to do? He says, nah, what am I going to do? I said, you want to stay? You want to go? He said, I want to stay. Of course, Cowlings had to say, sit down and cut the shit or I'm going to throw you out, right? So settles down. A few bottles were thrown while I'm standing by him. I'm dodging bottles myself, but I don't know who's throwing them. So I start to walk back up, and as I'm walking back up, I got this little drunk blonde chick about 5'3" and walks up to me, and she says, I'm going to go beat OJ's ass. I said, no, you're not. Said, yes, I am. I'm going to. Now she's got her boyfriend. He's got one arm, and you know how it is. These chicks, man, they get drunk. They get a little wild and crazy. So I have to tell I tell him, I said, calm her down or I'm going to throw her out and you out. He says, don't worry, officer, I got it. Finally, he calms her down. So I start to walk back up, and one of the grabs me and said, officer, people are spitting on you. I said, what? So it turns out because I didn't throw OJ out, now they're spitting on my back as I'm walking up to leave the area. And then some lady grabbed a napkin and wiped the spit off my back. I said, but that's my OJ story.
So the question is, why didn't you get the confession?
I was gonna, if I was gonna escort him out.
That's good. All right, let's go. This one. Look at this one. Hit the dumpster with a tape measure.
This is whenever you get a dumpster case, the problem, there's always a problem, especially if the body's not in it. This was my homicide I had without a body. And what happened was the kid was reported as a missing person. So our missing persons unit had it for about a week. And they brought in all his buddies and they couldn't get anything from him. So they bring it to homicide. They bring us the case while we're in the middle of the Booby Boys case. So our commander comes over to Tony and says, listen, can you guys do me a favor and look at this case? So Tony looks at me and says, you got it. You're the lead. I said, all right. So we talked to the missing persons detective. We get the name of two of his buddies. So two of us go to one house, and then the other two detectives go to the other buddy's house. So the house that me and Steve go to, we start talking to the guy, and we're there for about an hour or so. And finally the guy cracks. He says, yeah, man, we killed him. He says, you killed him? Okay. He says, but before I tell you anything, can I have a cigarette? No, you can't. No, of course. Yeah, have a cigarette, dude. So we give him a cigarette. So the story goes that the three guys, they were on a burglary spree. They've been doing this for about a month. Well, they decided to go out to the state prison off of Southwest 8th Street, Tamiami Trail, and they're going to break into the prison guards' cars because they figured they got guns in the cars, right? So there's a long winding road to get back to the parking lot. Well, they parked their car about halfway, and they start to walk up. So he says, while we were walking up, he says, my other buddy, the guy that my other partner were talking to, pulls out his gun and he says to me, I'll bet you $1 I can shoot him in the back of the head. So of course, the guy I'm talking to, you ain't gonna shoot him back in the head. Go ahead, fuck you, I'll bet you $1. So he puts the gun to the back of the guy's head and he pulls the trigger and it misfires. And of course, the guy walking ahead says, hey, quit screwing around, man. What are you doing? What's this shit, And he continues to walk. Well, he gets ahead of him. The guy says, seriously, give me $1. I'll shoot him in the back of the head. So he says, all right, I'll give you $1. So he goes up, puts the gun in the back of the head. This time the gun discharges and shoots him in the back of the head. Kills him right there on the spot. It's about 3 a.m. Now they got a body. The car they're in is the victim's car, and they don't know what to do with the body. Well, this area is kind of like near the Everglades, and there's water there and all that. So according to this guy, he says, we picked the body up. We're going to throw him in the Everglades, and we wanted the gators to get him. And they said, so they pick him up and they start walking in. Well, they started sinking in the mud to where they couldn't walk. The mud's getting thick. So they said, well, this ain't going to work. So they go back out. They end up throwing the kid in the trunk of his car. And for a day and a half, they drive around with him in the trunk of the car. They go tell the mom that they went to pump gas at a gas station. Her son started talking to a couple black guys and got in the car with them and never saw him again. Disappeared, right? And this is a story they initially told the missing persons detective when they interviewed him. So he says, we drove around in the car. Finally, the body's starting to stink. So we got to do something. They drove up to Broward. They came back. And they finally said, there's a dumpster over here on Southwest 8th Street, Little Havana. And I know a place. It turned out to be a car repair place. So they drove behind there and they put the body in this dumpster. That's what he's telling us. Then they torched the car. And then they left. So city of Miami, it's in their jurisdiction. So they get the torch car, but they don't know what's going on with the body. They haven't pieced it together. So we tracked that down. Well, now we've got a dumpster. And I learned something in this case. You learn something in every case, right?
Every case.
Every case. So we don't have a body. We find out that the one of the bad guys, not the one I interviewed, but the other one had been taunting the mom, walking in front of her house, taunting her about her missing son and all this shit. So this kid takes us all these places where the body could be. We end up at the dumpster. It's not there. So we find out that there's a dump in Medley, in Dade County. It's the city of Medley. So we call there and they say, listen, we dump our dumpsters by grids. So we can tell you where this dumpster was dumped. And they give us a grid. So guess what we get to do for about a week? We go to the dump. And if you've never had the pleasure of digging about 20 feet down with a backhoe to a dump, and this decomps are one thing, but the smell of a dump, okay, now this is around Thanksgiving time, so it wasn't hot, but when you start burying shit, it starts to smolder and heat up, and that's why they have the methane gas pipes and all that crap. So we brought a backhoe in, we brought a canine in, and for a week we dug and we dug and we dug. The dog hit on one bone, turned out not to be a human bone. Then we find out that if the bone is doesn't have any skin attached to it, a canine back then couldn't alert on it. So we're digging. Bottom line, we never found the body. All the stuff that we did. So I charged the two guys with the murder. And again, the prosecutor decides to give the one guy a sweetheart deal, gave the other guy, I think, 26 years to life. Because, well, we can't prosecute a case without a body. It's going to be hard to do, and this and that. And they're burglars, and they've been terrorizing. They were Coral Gables. That's all these guys were doing every night was burglarizing cars and stealing shit. So it was kind of just desserts maybe for them all when it's all said and done. But like I say, anytime you have a dumpster in a homicide, unless the body's in there, you got a lot of work to do.
Baby. No, you got to do it. You got to do it. This is why, Jeff, I appreciate you telling these stories, because the troops and the non-sworn need to hear like what really happens behind the scenes, But we're rolling on 918. We're up to 456 live viewers. Still going up, not going down. Good job. This is a good one. I thought this was really cool.
This was a case, a New Year's Day case. Again, I got more murders on Christmas Eve, Christmas and New Year's and New Year's.
We're going to shoot it now. We're going to shoot it now. We're at 920. We're 220 now. Yeah. So
about a block from here, there was a gas station, and an elderly black gentleman had driven down from Georgia for the Christmas season to sell pirate DVDs and things like that out of his van. So he's doing that in the parking lot of this gas station where these two knuckleheads decide to rob him. Of course, during the course of the robbery, they shoot and kill him inside of his van. So we get the case, and during our area canvass, we were told about this apartment complex where these gangbangers hung out. It was a vacant apartment complex. So we go, I think this was the first day we were there. And of course, we see this writing on the wall. We figure, well, it's got to be part of the gang. That's gang lingo and the guns and all that shit. So it was one of the few times I actually wore a trench coat. So I said, I got to get a picture of me in a trench coat. Come on. So I posed for that picture there. And I continued the investigation. And one of the best things that came out of this case was across the street from the crime scene, there was a lady selling NFL leather jackets out of the back of her van. So we went over to talk to her. I ended up buying one for $40. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, so I bought a NFL.
I see that.
Green Bay Packer jacket from her. Yeah, I worked the case, and eventually I get the two guys identified, bring them in, get confessions from both of them. 15 and 16 years old. That case went to trial. They got convicted, and the kid got life. The kid wrote me a letter after he got to prison asking if I could help him get him out of jail. I said, I ain't helping you get out of jail, dude. You're a fucking murderer. But we worked out for about 2 or 3 weeks before I closed that case.
Yeah. All right. We got, let's see, real quick. A quick award. Again, we got to start wrapping up. So What is this?
Quickly, Booby Boys. We got the Attorney General's Award up in Washington, D.C. That's me. In the back is Chris Clark, the prosecutor. In the middle is Lenny Athos, the DEA agent we work with. To the left of him is Bruce Brown, prosecutor. His brother played football for Notre Dame and Green Bay. And in the back was one of my partners, Mike Hernandez, who was another football player in his day. We worked this case for about maybe a year or so. We locked up 12, including a Miami-Dade police officer. Okay, and if you've ever heard a story about during the course of your investigation, a police officer becomes aware of him being investigated, and he brings his ass into your office when you're not there, starts to snoop through your files. This actually happened with this guy, and we found out about it. We ended up getting him banned from the headquarters building. Everybody went to trial. We convicted everybody, including Marvin, the baker, the police officer. He got, I think, 15 years. He's probably out now. The two leaders, Booby and E4, Efren Casado, were offered 30 years to cooperate and get everybody else to plead guilty. They refused to. They went to trial. They're both doing life right now. Otherwise, they'd have been out of prison by now. All federal. We took it federal, and we got that award, the Attorney General's Award. And man, did I have a hangover that day. Holy crap. I got to blame Carlos for that.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, Jeff, I mean, we could keep going. There's casework. There's pictures. You gave me a lot of pictures. So Pete, just so you know, because I receive all the pictures, everybody, that the guests send us, Jimmy Kennedy and Jeffrey Lewis, by far, more than anybody else, provided more pictures than anybody else. Everyone else sends like 2 or 3. Jeff and the 2 homicide detectives crushed it. So
we got to do another episode.
Appreciate that.
Talk about the other photos.
Listen, I didn't even talk about Miami Vice.
Yeah. No, we'll get you back. We'll get you back.
Right.
You got a conference coming up November 17th, the National Homicide Investigators Association. Yes. Pete and Carlos Canino will be speaking there. So go ahead, plug your conference, please.
We hold this conference every year. We get detectives and forensics folks, anybody involved in murders, to come in from all across the country. Every year we hold this in the Orlando area. It starts November 17th through the 20th, and we have speakers every day. We have a hospitality suite at night that I run. I'm in charge of that. And some of our speakers this year, we talked about Minneapolis. We have the Liz who wrote the book and did the story on the George Floyd case. Liz Collins is the presenter.
Oh, yep. She's the best.
And her husband is coming as well. We have a presentation where 2 FBI agents got killed in Broward County. Pete with Fast and Furious with Carlos. A contract murder case, a serial killer, Israel Keys, and a few other cases are going to be presented. But the thing is, we have like our board members that we have on are you familiar with Rodney Harrison?
He's a good friend of mine. I was a sergeant in narcotics. He was a detective that worked directly for me, not with me, for me.
Rodney gave the Gilco Beach murders case.
Yes, sir.
Presentation last year. He's now an advisory board member. We've got LAPD cold case detectives. We've got medical examiners, police officers from Florida that were all on this board. The guy that wrote the book, Bosch, wrote that book. He's an advisory board member. So we've got a lot of good people. We've had a lot of good presentations. So if you go to the website, if you're interested in coming, there's still time to sign up for it.
I put it in the chat.
Perfect. And we have a great team.
Yeah, do you have so we didn't talk about NIBIN tonight. We'll definitely do something in the future. Stephanie Lohr, a forensic tool mark examiner, is going to be a future guest. She's one of my favorite people, hardcore, all about the ammo and tool mark examinations on fired cartridge cases, and like just so much fun. The deep forensics on all of the ballistic work. So she's going to be a future. So if you have one of those, do you have any of those too?
Man, the last gang case that I put together, I put together based on a lot of NIBIN hits. By the time I left, our firearms section literally had a full wall with linking cases. And I used that, and I could tell you, go into that whole thing, how I use that to my advantage and how we close these cases. And we close over 30 murders just, with NIBIN.
For sure. So she's a great resource if you ever need that recommendation. There's about, just for the listeners, there's about 400 tool mark examiners in the country, and there's about 800 in the world. 400 of them work in the United States. So 800 people out of billions and billions of people have this skill set. They're really special people to talk to. They are the shit. So with that, I am going to let you guys talk. Any final thoughts, any last things before we do our show wrap up, Jeff? So I'll let you and Pete talk while I do a little production stuff.
Hey, Jeff, we already got demands for you to come back on, brother, which we haven't had that yet. So we definitely have to make that happen. Like I said, I heard amazing stories about you. We've never crossed paths in person. We have mutual friends from my time in Miami. So we got to make it happen, brother.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, it's been great.
I appreciate the opportunity to do this. I always say anything that can be done to shine a bright light on law enforcement, to put the word out about how awesome these detectives are that are working today, cops everywhere. They don't get enough kudos. So anything I can do to just shine that light, man, I'm doing it. I love doing it.
I always say, like when I talk to law enforcement groups and whatnot, is, I learned from old timers, man. And what a gift it was to work with those guys I talked about earlier, the guys that were around in the Serpico days. Here was some young 20-something-year-old detective. Maybe somebody's watching and learned something from you today, or a light bulb goes off because they heard it. So I mean, paying it forward, or what you're doing with the cold case stuff. I mean, it's just such a great thing to be able to do, man. Such an honor. So thanks for continuing to do it, and thanks for coming on, man.
No, I appreciate the invite. This was awesome. I had a great time. You guys are awesome. I look forward to seeing you, Pete, in next month.
Yeah, I'll be drinking something other than water because I'll be off the antibiotics by then.
Like I said, I run the hospitality room, so yes.
All right, so Terry Murnane said another great show. Everyone stay well and stay safe before this. But Marlon, who's also the third wheel on the Finest Unfiltered with Eric and John, Jeff has to come back on. We need to hear about the real Miami Vice and the cocaine era, 1980s Dade County. So let Jeff recover from his conference. He's obviously hosting the hospitality room. He's going to need at least 2 or 3 months of recovery. So with that,
as a teaser, I'll tell you about the ticket my good friend wrote to Don Johnson.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So good. All right. So as everybody knows, PeterJForcelli.com has got his Deadly Path book. You have to read it, which is what he will be presenting with Carlos Canino at the National Homicide Investigators Association with Jeff next month. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Sal Greco show every Tuesday and Thursday, but since this is Tuesday, and you go back and look at today's previous episode and then look at Thursday, 1:05 p.m. I didn't have the thumbnail for the executive perspective. Let me see what's going on here before we get into that. So let me just take this down for a second. The executive perspective, Ron Layson and Rob Lukash, Inspector Ron Layson, Deputy Chief Rob Lukash. Tomorrow, there was a prisoner who was handcuffed in New York City by a police officer, maybe on the paid detail at an Apple store, somehow got away and then walked around for 30 minutes and then walked up to a police officer and said, I got these handcuffs on me. Can you help me take them off? So that happened in New York City yesterday. From today till tomorrow, the executive perspective guys will unwrap that and figure out what's going on there. And then they will dissect what they know at that time. But early indications are that somebody who may have been a New York City police officer on a paid detail handcuffed a prisoner, but you never know. Could be a hoax, could be real. The executive perspective will unravel that over the next 24 hours before they get on and see what's going on. I just want to go back to one previous comment that I thought was hilarious, because on our first topic of the Antifa stuff, Billy John, Antifa is going to be defined by Trump as anyone against his interests. Thanks for that comment. It's awesome. So good. So intelligent. So spot on. Real good job there, buddy. You guys want to comment on that?
No. I'm good.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah. So good. All right. Finest Unfiltered, everybody, on YouTube at the Finest Unfiltered, for the 10-4 Tavern, at X, LinkedIn. Pete and I and Jeffrey is also very, very vocal on LinkedIn. That's where we do our business, law enforcement related topics. Instagram and Facebook at 10-4 Tavern. So, guys, I really appreciate it. Jeff, I will tell you, absolutely, especially because of the homicide stuff and the cold case stuff, one of my favorite episodes for sure. This is the stuff I really enjoy talking about. You had really good perspectives on the Antifa stuff, jumped right in. Pete, really good stuff on your side from the federal perspective. It was really insightful and educational for me as well. It's not really my ballywick. So appreciate that, guys. With that, I'm going to give final thoughts. 2.5 hours, 468 live viewers, always on the upside, not one drop off. Maybe some dropped off, but the numbers always climbed. So thank you for that. Really good job. Really good job, guys. I'll leave it to you guys to wrap up, and then we're going to do our outro. Jeff, stay on afterwards, and we'll do a debrief at the end for 5 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, well, good seeing you, brother. Like I said earlier, I look forward to seeing you next month. We'll raise a cocktail glass together.
Again, I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and look forward to seeing you, Pete. And I got some Carlos stories.
We'll keep Carlos under control.
I got some stories. Don't worry.
I'll be his chaperone.
Okay, and then we had one super chat. DJ VR 1999. Thanks for the contribution in the super chat. Really appreciate it. Pretty consistent. Probably most of the episodes is always a contribution from DJ VR. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, with that, guys, please, everybody, be safe, be well, and Pete, your comment. As always, we're in the tavern. We don't want.
It is okay to not be okay, but it is not okay not to do something about it. So if you're out there, man, you see things you can't unsee, get some help, talk to somebody, professional, a priest, a friend, but don't suffer in silence, man. Look for the light at the end of the tunnel. Don't look for a permanent solution to a temporary problem. God bless.
There you go. Thank you, Peter.